Good morning, all. Welcome to the Thursday, March 6th open session for the Carroll County Commissioners. And as we prefer to do every meeting, we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Priority Carroll, and I think we start with Commissioner Guerin.
I think so. Good morning. So there'd be more folks here. Maybe they're coming. But so Priority Carroll, if everyone's not familiar with it, it's sort of our opportunity to talk up here, and everybody just has to kind of listen, and we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. So if you're sitting in the audience, you'll notice there's a flyer there with some contact information on it. That is there and is for anybody who comes in later, because I want to and the reason that's there is I want to focus just in a few minutes on the big question regarding Blueprint and education funding and everything is, what can we do? We already know what's being asked of the board. Tough decisions regarding whether, we've got a general fund, use all that money up. It's the money we use for capital improvements and a lot of other things. There might be enough money in there. Or do we raise people's property tax bills by 22, 23%? That's a lot. It's important to mention as well that not every email we get is saying completely fund everything. There's a lot of people in the county who don't have kids in the school system or grandkids. They want to see the school system thrive like it has been. I mean, we haven't gotten any complaints about it lately. It's been years. I've never seen many complaints, concerns about funding. But so people have to understand that not everybody in the county might feel the same way. And if the board does decide to take some actions, whether it's trying to raise property taxes or use up whatever we have in general fund, people are going to speak up about that as well. So the question really is, what can we do? And I want to direct everyone's attention to what's going on in Annapolis, because that is a big answer to the question, what can we do? There is some contact information on the sheet you'll see there for the Accountability Implementation Board and some key members of the General Assembly. What you've been hearing for months now is that our situation in Carroll County is different. We are unique amongst all the other counties in the one city. Our funding formula affects us in different ways than anybody else, and it is absolutely true. We are the most unique county when it comes to this funding formula and what it's doing to us. That's the message I'm asking parents, anybody in this room for the rest of the day, to convey to the Accountability Implementation Board and these key members of Congress. If you're not here in the room to see this sheet, look it up online and let them know. Let them know how unique our situation is. We need their help, whether it's waiving, whether it's waivers, whether it's adjustments in funding, whatever the case may be. In the politest way possible, let them know that what they're hearing from our legislators, what they're hearing from our Carroll delegation is all true. We are very unique in this regard, and we need their help. And my understanding, just anecdotally, is that there's been some receptiveness. That extends as well to the teachers that are listening. Have that same conversation with your union leaders. Anecdotally, again, my understanding is that there are a lot of people at the state and county levels who are recognizing, wow, you know what, I think this isn't exactly what we thought it was going to be, at least in the early stages. And that's a good thing, but we need people to act soon. We need people to act quickly. We are running out of time. So that's why, if you're in the room or you're listening, I am encouraging everybody to, in the politest way possible, let the Accountability Implementation Board, let these key members of the General Assembly, Senator Ferguson, Speaker Jones, let them know that what they're hearing from residents of Carroll County and our delegation is 100% true. And it is something that I don't think they can deny for very long. So hopefully we can make that headway. And even if we're all disagreeing on what to do at the county level, I think we can all agree that reaching out to some of these higher authorities in Annapolis is not a bad thing. It makes a lot of sense. And I would encourage everybody in the county to do it, not just if you have a kid or grandkid in the school system, like I do. I mean, I'm a product of the Carroll County Public School System. So is my sister and my wife and my kids. I'm South Carroll guy through and through. But everybody needs to speak up about this, because this transcends just parents. And parents, rightly so, are in a serious distress about this. I mean, it's an educational apocalypse for some, and we all get that. So I'm asking people to get out and get information, reach out to Annapolis, and let these folks know that we need some action. We need some tangible action on their part to help us out, whether it's a delay or waiver, whatever it is. We need help. So that's all I wanted to convey today, and anybody who walks in will see this sheet right here, and I would encourage you to do so. An email doesn't take long to send. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gordon.
Good morning. I'm going to be really brief. I just have a couple things I wanted to mention from this past week. On Friday, Commissioner Kyler and I attended the Tobacco on Main Street grand opening. It was a very nice event. Nice to see Tom Cannon with his newly opened business on Main Street. Very well attended by the community as a whole. Also, on Saturday, I attended, as did Commissioner Vigliotti and Commissioner Rothstein, we attended the History Day Expo at Winters Mill. Great turnout by students and the community alike to visit with a number of the nonprofits and other organizations. Some absolutely incredible exhibits that the kids came up with, just absolutely impressive. And then we had a number of entities there at the public library. This was a fantastic exhibit. Chris, if you can leave this up a second. This young lady had one on the White House and the burning of the White House in D.C. And the White House actually flickered. I don't know if both of you got to see any of that exhibit specifically, but somehow she had worked lighting into that, so that was quite impressive from a technological standpoint. Also, as many people may be aware, on WBAL's Sunday Brunch segment this week, we had a Carroll County restaurant featured, which was Collision Course, which is Ashley and Tony Gerald out of Westminster. So it was great to see them. As always, good to see our small businesses well represented, not only locally, but also throughout the state. And last but certainly not least, I was in attendance last night at Planning and Zoning with the rest of the board. So that's all for me right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vigliotti.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be quick as well today because I know we have a lot on the agenda ahead of us. So as Commissioner Gordon pointed out, I had the pleasure of attending the History Expo at Winters Mill High School over the weekend. Commissioner Rothstein was also there, and Commissioner Gordon gave some excellent introductory remarks. And as he had showed the clip of the burning of the White House, a lot of really fascinating and interesting exhibits. It is incredible the sorts of research that young people do into history and the things they come up with that interest them and fascinate them. Second, I want to commend the Sheriff, Jim DeWeese, the Sheriff's Department, Taneytown Police Department, State's Attorney Haven Shoemaker, and the State's Attorney's Office for their work and success in apprehending those responsible for the hit and run that occurred in Taneytown this August. They shared all of this news in a press conference this week, and I quite agree with them that those who were responsible for what happened should never have been back out on the street to begin with. But I cannot commend them and congratulate them enough on bringing this to a conclusion and doing so in a constructive and successful way. Third, I had the pleasure of spending some time yesterday with the Sheriff, the State's Attorney, members of Fire and EMS system to cooperatively follow up and address some public safety concerns in District 1. We were very well served by all of these groups, and our relationship with them is important, as is communication and cooperation with them as well. And also, having an in-field approach to things is important too. The sheriff is not sending somebody else to go look into something. He's doing it himself. I know all of us up here, whenever we have the capacity or the ability to do so, we get involved personally in the field as well. This isn't just something we sit up here and talk about every week. We are involved in the districts and across the county. And last but not least, as I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, we have been receiving a larger amount of correspondence than usual. All of us are, and I am looking at all of them, even if I've been unable to respond yet, so I do apologize for that, but we are looking at everything that does come in, and that's all from me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rothstein.
Okay. First, Commissioner Garin, good comments, and appreciate the guidance that you're also providing to our community, because this is definitely a one team, one fight, trying to accomplish the results and get to where we need to be with the blueprint, with this unfunded mandates, whatever we want to call it. Bottom line is it's affecting our kids. And many of us up here have had kids in the system or have been kids in the system. I mean, mine have been elementary, middle, and high school, and have taken advantage of the academics and the athletics, and have successfully moved on. And it would not have happened unless it was for the awesome system that we have. And so whatever we can do to maintain that, we are going to do. And I think the five of us are committed to doing that, and I believe there's a commitment from the community. Last night, the town hall, which was more of a listening session than a town hall question and answer, the superintendent, she did a great job with her team, sharing what the impact of these mandates are that are being pushed on upon us. And then also, like Commissioner Guerin shared, these are the folks to reach out to at the state level to make some decisions on either providing waivers or delaying actions or whatever they can do. But I appreciate being in attendance and humbled always by the amount of folks that were there, and the passion and the intent of what they shared. It was all very true as far as that intent, and we're going to work together to make something happen. Besides that, going backwards, whatever day that was, on Sunday, I did attend. It was really cool down in Piney at the park. Anna Landry received her Gold Star. She's a student at Liberty High School. I believe she's a senior. Really cool kid. And she created a path from one of the pavilions to the Nature Center, and got a lot of donations and a lot of hard work over a couple of years. And these kids are just, the difference between being a citizen and just a community member. A citizen, somebody actually does something to build up a community. And that's what I shared with Anna, so I was very impressed. Which also, I had the opportunity to judge at the National History Day, and these kids, I mean, they're amazing. And it was a very, very difficult decisions to make between first, second, third place of some of these displays. But you could just tell everyone, at least that I came across, did their homework, did a lot of work, and put a lot of effort into the trifolds. I remember, again, with my kids doing it back in the day, and it just brought back those memories. But they've come a long ways. I mean, it was really impressive. The last thing I just want to share is this evening, 1 to 7 p.m. at the Eldersburg Library, I believe is the last master plan session we have in Carroll County. And the master plan is a 2035 document. Where do we want Carroll County to be over the next 10 years? Where we want it to be is where you want it to be. It's the intent of you, not the five of us, and there's no way the five of us can come up with a solution. It's the combination of you telling us where to go, what you want to achieve over the next 10 years, and then how do we apply those resources. It's a mandated requirement by the state, but the value of it is your insight, candidness, and input as we capture the comments and details into the master plan. It's a 1 to 7 drop-in type of effort. I should be there around 3 to 4 o'clock this afternoon. I have a couple meetings here prior to, and take as much or as little time as you'd like. It's not just for those in the Eldersburg area, it's for the entire county. So if you hadn't not had the opportunity to attend yet, feel free to attend. If you don't have the ability to attend, feel free, just like anything else, reach out to any one of us or to the directors with your insight and input. And that goes for everything. That goes for everything from what Commissioner Vigliotti shared to whatever else is on your mind. And we will, I can't speak for all, but I do believe we will all be as responsive as we can moving forward. Yeah, that's about it. Again, appreciated the superintendent, her team last night, providing details. I look forward to hearing what she has to share and then moving forward. So,
Thank
to
you. And I'll touch on a few different things, but then some of the guys already covered some of the things I had. This week was Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday. Some people in the building had pancakes and bacon. Some people had false nuts, and it's just great to see people celebrating. And Ash Wednesday, I got reprimanded. Who'd have thought? But and we do, and you see it with some of your holidays or special days. More and more stuff is being scheduled that conflict. I was told I should have been in Ash Wednesday service, but I was co-hosting a solar hearing for Cape Horn Road that was scheduled months ago, and so be it. I mean, the solar hearings are important for us in Carroll County, and this one was kind of low-key. Some have been a lot of people, a lot of vocal people. Some have been relatively quiet. The last two, the actual landowner of the site spoke, and which was interesting. I'll get an email. I haven't done it yet. Judge Grace last night, we get to co-host, and so we were sitting talking. They had a handout that I hadn't seen before. They have one for, it's like 2 pages for each solar project in Carroll County. And I have the link to the site. You can go there and you can see other counties, you can see our county, but it was a great information piece, and they passed them out there, and she said, we haven't passed them out before, but I'm gonna start doing that. You mentioned master plan, open house, and that's super. Again, through this process, and some of the emails have said we should really have a master plan. We should be planning for growth in the county. And I recognize, unless there's a problem, not a lot of people pay attention to us. But I was at the master plan open house at North Carroll Library last week. At least a dozen staff, probably that many display areas. Knowledgeable, answer questions, give you links to stuff, and it was a lot of traffic, and it was a lot of information, and I think people really, really appreciate it. You mentioned the ribbon cutting. I'll skip that. This weekend's the Wrestling States down in PG County. Carroll County has a lot of people in it. A lot of students, wrestlers in it. It's neat. If you are interested but don't want to run to PG County, Track Wrestling follows it great. And you mentioned Collision Course. They have a daughter that wrestles. And I apologize to Collision Course. I don't know if she made states or not, but I know she's been a very
She
good
did well, but I don't believe
yeah,
she made
she
states.
did well.
Yes.
She's been a very good wrestler, so that's kind of neat. Budget review, we're in that process. We've had a presentation. There'll be some open meetings, closed meetings, a lot of discussion. We'll be spending probably most Tuesdays, most Thursdays all day trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of CCPS, which is getting all the focus right now, is about 45% of our budget. And the landfill, public works, EMS, fire people, sheriff are all equally important. And it's going to be a tough year, but we're headed there. Commissioner Guerin mentioned CCPS. The only thing I would like to add, you gave a great presentation. I was on the Board of Ed, and during COVID, and many of the same people that dislike me now, dislike me then. And I often testified, because we were fighting Blueprint back then, I often testified MSDE. And I'd like to caution you with your emails to AIB, MSDE, delegates, whatever, the attorney for Board of Ed, which sometimes attorneys can help you, he said, look at the emails you get from the people that dislike you. They call you names, they call you a liar, and then they expect you to make a decision that helps you. He said, you're going down to MSDE, don't poke the bear. Try to state your case, but as soon as, my opinion, as soon as somebody's negative, doesn't have the facts, calls you a liar because you do have the facts, you turn them off. And that was a good lesson. So please, please, if you follow Commissioner Guerin's thing and talk to Annapolis, be positive. Tell them our situation. If you name call them, they're going to delete the email. Well, be positive. And then I'd like to mention public comment for our meeting. 3 minutes, not question and answer, and try to be respectful. We have public comment on most of the agenda items, and please, when you fill out your card in the back that you want to do public comment, put a subject. If for some reason we miss you and you wanted to talk about circuit court, raise your hand, say something, and don't let us miss you. If you want to do public comment about something that's not on the agenda, you're most welcome to do that, but it's at the end of the meeting when we have our public comment and admin open. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows, fill out a card. We may get some callers, and they will let us know if we have anybody on the line, and we'll do public comment. If you filled out a card and you want to do it, you'll do it at the beginning of the agenda item, and we appreciate you doing it. Anything else, guys?
No, sir.
Okay, our first item, item 2, is discretionary grant application acceptance of award for the circuit court. Morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
Commissioners. I'm Nathan Hoyle. I'm the Family Law Administrator for the Circuit Court. With your permission, we'd like to go a little out of order. Judge Hecker's hung up with his docket a little bit, so I would talk about.
Actually, he's
the-
right
There
behind
he
you.
is.
Oh, he's faster than I thought.
I
Okay.
tell you.
Let me step out of the way, and we'll get it back in order.
Wait.
then, and
That's all
I'll
right.
get out of the way.
You can both sit there if Judge Hecker's okay with that.
Whoever had the foresight to build our courthouse as close as it is to the county office building made a smart decision.
Good morning, Judge.
Morning.
I'll get
Good morning.
Good morning, sorry
Morning, Your
about
Honor.
the interruption.
And he's not even huffing and puffing or anything.
I know. He's used to the, they used to say,
I use the Tim Burke exercise plan. I've been using it for, I don't know, how long, Tim?
You'd be crawling here. if you
10
were doing
years?
that.
and no offense to CCPS, we're going to get to see them today. The joke used to be that Steve Guthrie would run from one building to another, and John O'Neill has told me, I'll walk fast, but I'm not running, you know, but, so thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to address the Board of Commissioners, and I appreciate the time on the agenda. This morning, we're asking that the Board of County Commissioners approve a grant from the Office of Problem Solving Courts in the amount of $381,438.50. The county fund match would be $4,745. I know that each of you are quite familiar with the Carroll County Adult Drug Treatment Court, which is, from our perspective, one of the crown jewels of the Circuit Court for Carroll County. It is, it's an opportunity, the program provides an opportunity for the court to have a much more individualized approach to individuals who encounter the criminal justice system. We have an opportunity to interact with them, of course, in the courtroom on a regular basis. As you know, drug treatment court participants are required to appear in court every other week. For the most part, as they move on through the levels, they have to appear less frequently. They meet with their case managers once a week. They are frequently drug tested. They have to work or do volunteer community service. They are in treatment, either in the community or in a residential program. And it's a very rigorous, robust program that is difficult to succeed in and get through. But those who do succeed and graduate stand a much better chance of not encountering, not getting involved in criminal activity, and of course remaining sober and leading a sober life. Even those who don't graduate, I believe, and they've told me so, and I think it's true, get a lot out of drug treatment court. So they take lessons with them that I think they apply not only to maintaining lives of sobriety, but to other aspects of their life, raising their children and work and so forth. So you have the briefing paper. I don't need to read that to you. I'm happy to answer any questions. Of course, with me are Dina Black, the case manager for Drug Treatment Court, and Nathan Hoyle, who I think is here to address other issues before the
And I
Commissioners
would just
today.
like to mention from the briefing paper, and correct me about 50% of the time I'm wrong, it is very rigorous and it's very successful, but slightly over half make it through it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is rigorous.
It is. It is. It's a little better than the national average. I've said that to this board before. The national average is around 50%. And so it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who are not really dedicated and committed to making changes in their life. And some just aren't ready for whatever reason. And we do, our policy allows us to readmit individuals. So we have individuals in our program who were not successful, and then we entertain an application for them to be readmitted to drug treatment court. Some we let back in, some we don't. And I would say by and large, those who have come into our program a second time have done pretty well. They have a little more maturity, they know what to expect, and they are more willing to comply with our expectations and their own expectations. So.
And so the request from the county, the grant is for almost $377,000, and the request from the county is $4,745.
Correct. Yes.
It's good math.
Yeah.
I try. I'll make a motion to approve the submission of the FY26 Office of Problem Solving Courts discretionary grant application and accept the award.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
The only question I have, and you know I applaud this from day one, how's the Veterans Court going?
Well, as you know, I believe the district court created a regional veterans
Right.
court, and that is, I think if I'm correct, the courts in that region are Carroll County, Baltimore, maybe Frederick County. I'm not positive.
Are you
Uh,
tracking at all veterans from Carroll County? I mean, how?
I wish I
how-
could answer the
Yeah,
question.
okay.
That question is probably better put to the district court judges, since
Okay.
those individuals who enter the regional drug
Yeah.
treatment court are entering through drug treatment court. So we
Okay.
don't manage those or supervise any of those individuals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
But
we
that's-
should
that's fair.
pursue
I'm happy
that.
to try to get some information for
I
you.
would like to. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm definitely an advocate for it. And I commend, the city taking this on, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
large effort. Yeah, so if we can find out,
Well,
'Cause I've heard that, I don't think a veteran from Carroll County's gone into it yet.
I don't
They've
know.
looked at it, talked
Right.
about it, and they will, but
Right.
yeah, that would be curious.
I'll reach
to
out
see.
to Mr. Shoemaker, I'll reach out to the court and
Yeah.
get you whatever information is available.
that'd be cool.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Just a reminder, our drug treatment court graduation, the next one is May 14th at 4:30 at the community college. Thanks again for letting us use that facility, and we'll get a formal invitation out to you, of course.
Yeah, actually, I think I just saw it yesterday, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right?
Okay, thank you.
day.
And now, Circuit Court wants to talk about Mediation and Conflict Resolution Office.
We'll turn it over to Mr. Hoyle, and if
Thank
you
you, Your
need
Honor.
me, Mr. Hoyle?
I'm good, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Honorable Commissioners, I'm here today to ask you for permission to submit our application for the FY26 Mediation and Conflict Resolution Office Alternative Dispute Resolution Grant. A lot of words.
You're welcome to sit down, by the way. I
thank
promise
you.
it's not court. You're welcome
All
to
right,
sit down.
old habits die hard. This grant mainly funds a position within the circuit court for our ADR staff practitioner. They provide day of court and non-day of court mediation and alternative dispute resolution services for cases, both to try to get them resolved so they're not on the docket that day for a judge, and sometimes to prevent them from being on the docket in the first place. One of the big things that we've introduced this year, because we do have a little bit of a shrinking attorney population in this county, and the bar in general, he's been covering both civil and family settlement conferences as well when needed by our settlement court coordinator. We're going to be holding a training for advanced mediation techniques to make sure that our local mediators that are providing mediation for our litigants have all the experience and all the knowledge that they need to have. That continuing education is important to make sure that they provide a quality product. The other parts of the grant include funds for mediations for child in need of assistance cases and supplies and training for that ADR practitioner. The total amount for the grant request would be $94,979.58 with no contribution from the county related to that. It is completely covered by the grant funds. And I'd ask the court approve that submission of that application today.
Well, I'll make a motion that the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the application for the FY 2026 Macros Court ADR grant application and accept the award.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And now lastly, Circuit Court will talk about jurisdictional family services grant application acceptance.
And guys, this grant, and similar to the last one, is used to fund part of our office. It is, in this case, the Family Services Office in the Circuit Court. It funds positions that run our visitation center, that run our new guardianship liaison program, to assign services related to family law cases such as BIAs, custody evaluations, psychological evaluations. We also are the kind of first point of contact for people from the community coming in who need assistance with family law matters. We can't give legal advice, but we do help people with forms, and we have a position that's specifically dedicated to that process. We also run our clinic, which is on Wednesday afternoons and Thursday mornings. It is staffed by volunteers from our attorney community in family law, but that is so that low-income people can get legal advice. And when those aren't available, we do refer people out to the state and some of our nonprofit partners for legal assistance in that manner. This grant is a $617,548.72. Nope, sorry, reading the wrong line. My apologies. $800,018, $14.88. Again, with no county contribution. This grant is generally covered completely by the grant.
How many individuals is this support? I mean, salaries of 616,000, and then you got the contractual services of another 160,000. How many people are we talking about?
So we have 6 full-time staff members under the staff salaries and benefits
Okay.
portion. We have an additional 7 positions under our contractual services for our visitation center observers, but the large part of that contractual services are funds for people that are low income for our best interest, not our best interest attorneys, that actually falls under a different category, but our custody evaluations, our psychological evaluations. It also covers our bailiffs for the visitation center, our contracts for the security system for the visitation center, and a couple of the other contracts that are used to run that.
Do you work with our citizen services and also the Carroll County Youth Service Bureau?
Oh, absolutely. We run into a lot of Youth Services Bureau with Springboard, with Dad's Works, with Carroll County Community Mediation. We have a lot of nonprofit partners that we work with throughout the community, and they're essential to kind of the network of how things work for our families. And one of our main goals with our domestic case navigator, one of our positions, in addition to helping people with forms, is that when they need other assistance, that's a person that's going to know what those services are, get them out to the services that they
Yeah.
need throughout the county.
And I appreciate that, and for us, as we move forward with the budget, how this all ties together. It's like this secondary, tertiary effects of our decisions on one nonprofit or something may have these type of effects, and there's a lot of intertwining that goes on, so.
One of the things I see, you mentioned youth services. The number of our litigants that come in that are receiving services for
Yeah.
therapy and things like that through them, it's outstanding service. I
Yeah.
really respect what they do over there.
Absolutely. So, okay, thanks.
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the submission of the application for the FY 2026 Jurisdictional Family Services Grant and accept the award.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? And I'd like to make one. The last 3 items, thank you very much. Services to Carroll County over $1.2 million, and the total cost, which I know excites Commissioner Rothstein.
Absolutely.
$4,745 is the total cost to Carroll County because of your guys' work to get the grants. So thank you very much.
Well, thank
Any
you.
other
Appreciate that.
comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I step down?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, Pam Meister with our legislative update.
Maybe.
Do we have her?
Here she
Here
is.
she is.
Okay.
Oh, hi.
Sorry about that.
Morning, Pam. How are you today?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you all?
Doing well, thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm just pulling up the slides here so that I can share my screen. There's a lot going on in Annapolis, as you can imagine. And I'm going to try to touch on some of the bigger issues today so that you can, oh wait, I have to hit share screen first. So you can kind of get caught up on the things that we've discussed previously. And then I'll take any questions as always, and we'll go from there. Like my screensaver? Okay. I want to do this right because last time I didn't share the whole screen and I want to, there we go. Now do we see it?
Yes.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, excellent. So we are still getting a few extra bills now and again getting introduced, as you can see. But I want to focus on the bills that are awaiting committee report. Most of these bills either Both houses, if it's a cross file, have had their hearings and are awaiting to report to their original floor, so the House or the Senate, wherever the bill was first introduced. There are some that I'll touch on that one version of the bill is awaiting committee report, and the others still may have a hearing or have been withdrawn or have a different status. So I'll keep you posted on those, but I'm going to go through that first. The BRFA, the Budget Reconciliation Financing Act, had a hearing on Friday. I listened to the first couple of hours of it because there was another hearing right after for the energy bills. And, you know, there's a lot going on in the BRFA. The only thing that I'm going to really highlight at this moment that I think is worthwhile, because I had a question about it last week, is the issue of funding for victim services for the trafficking and abuse. This is inside the BRFA. That's where it is. So I'm keeping an eye on what they're proposing for this issue. And I haven't learned yet the status of if the cut and the reduction is going to go through or if they're going to restore it. But I've located where that issue is, and I'll let you know. Otherwise, with the BRFA, you know, this is where so many of the issues that we've written letters are living right now. And so many of the issues that are under discussion. And I would imagine in the next couple of weeks, everything budget related is going to keep coming to a head as we await the continuing resolution and all the prospective things that we've talked about that could happen as a result of Medicaid cuts and other things from the federal government. But the BRFA is where a lot of things hide. So, you know, we've weighed in on the teacher pension shift. We've weighed in on a couple of other issues in writing and behind the scenes, and MACO has weighed in on everything. So, you know, this continues to be, you know, the hot topic of this session when it comes to finances. The other issue that's been really big has been the presiding officer's energy package. And this was I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 hours. I lost track of bill hearing on Friday for these bills. And we did submit written testimony specifically on the Renewable Energy Certainty Act, House Bill 1036. It's come to my attention since the hearing that a lot of the concerns that all of the local governments, including Carroll County and MACO, raised are being addressed, we hope, by amendments. This was referred to even during the bill hearing by members, and they were explaining, you know, that they had been in discussion with MACO and other counties and that they were trying to work with everybody. So it was really, you know, a nice way to start a hearing like that, because I think if not, it could have gone on and on and on in a much more negative light, because it seems like everybody was talking about partnership and working together. And it seems like that may be happening. The main concerns of these bills relate to the rising energy costs that everybody is seeing, grid reliability, and the transition to cleaner energy sources. And these bills are aiming to accelerate energy generation, streamline regulatory process, and enhance certainty for clean energy investments. There were a lot of concerns raised about health impacts. There were a lot of concerns raised about how to just balance this energy strategy. And there were many counties represented individually. There were also individuals coming to talk. So there were a lot of different perspectives. And it will be interesting to see what actually comes out of it. MACO did appear, as I mentioned, to reach a conceptual agreement on House Bill 1036, which is the one that we weighed in on specifically. And the proposed amendments largely align with the legislation that MACO had negotiated a compromise on in November, just before the end of the year. So if this comes through as planned, the highlights of those amendments include prohibiting the use of eminent domain for construction of solar energy generating systems, amendments to establish clear livability standards developed with extensive input from county technical staff, and they define boundaries of county authority and underline the counties may deny approvals for projects that fail to meet that criteria. Additionally, there were amendments that clarify public participation process, which is very important, of course, and an amendment that talks about local revenues, removing the pilot and tax section in its entirety, as well as amendments to remove the battery storage section in its entirety for public safety. So this has all been submitted to the president and the speaker's offices. Discussions and refinements are likely to evolve as the drafting process goes forward, but I'll keep you in the loop as I learn more, and it's nice to see that this is really what happens when you get in the weeds and everybody kind of voices their concerns, their opinions, and people work together. So hopefully the positive intent will come through at the end with these bills, and a lot of the things that we've been concerned about will get stripped away. This next piece of legislation, House Bill 935, Public School Venues Specific Emergency Action Plans, High School Football Games, is something that was brought to my attention by Carroll County's Michael Robinson. This bill is still awaiting committee action, and it requires that only high school football programs have an emergency action plan that public high schools must develop to include the presence of either a licensed athletic trainer or ambulance staffed with the appropriate emergency medical services personnel. It's a mandate on local government, and it strengthens safety measures at high school football games. But there's a lot of concerns that Mr. Robinson has raised. And so I'm bringing this to your attention, and I will send you the bill today to take a look at and ask you to just weigh in with me individually on your thoughts on this bill, if this is something that you would want to pose, or if you have any questions about it once you actually read the bill. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming your way, so that we can follow up and determine, what makes the most sense for this particular bill.
When is it scheduled to go to committee?
Good question. I think actually it's already gone to committee. It's awaiting their action, but we can still weigh in because they haven't given a report. And some of the letters that we've been sending have been, on time for our hearings, and others have been after. And I'm getting pretty good responses, even when it's within their deliberation period, where it's getting sometimes even added to the bill file. So I don't think it's too late to weigh in.
Have you brought this to Mako's attention, this bill?
Not yet. This was just brought to my attention, so I wanted to raise it to you, and then I can certainly contact them. I don't think they've taken a position on this as of yesterday, at least when I had checked in, and I don't remember hearing about it at any of the meetings, unless it's one that kind of slipped through. So I can follow up with them.
And Deb, if we could have Chief Robinson write to us with any thoughts or concerns he may have with
Sure.
this, or whether. Thank you very much.
I mean, I just think that they're going to oppose this because it's another unfunded mandate. It's another requirement that the state's saying you will do, but they're not going to give us the dollars to do it. And that's, so I mean, it looks like a great idea, and I don't disagree with the intent of it, but you got to pay for it somehow. So that's going to be
I also think there's questions as to why it's only football. I'm not saying we want to expand the mandate, but I think it just seems curious too.
Yeah. No,
That's a good point.
I agree. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Sure. And then we also just had the hearing in the Senate for the Sunday hunting bill. And I testified, obviously in support of that legislation, along with Senator Reedy. But there was some opposition. And I will send notes so you can have all the specific kind of summarized talking points. But generally, the opposition surrounded, actually, the notes are in your packet, so you can actually read them. I don't need to send that. But they all surrounded the desire to have a day off from hunting. People were saying that there are 6 days on, there should be 1 day off for people that don't want to get shot at. They were worried about safety. Some people were saying that, families and people who have PTSD, potentially like veterans, would be very disturbed by this. There was a lot of emphasis on fairness and stressing just the need for non-hunters to have their time. So I've outlined in your packet all of the different talking points, but there is some opposition. If you have thoughts about this and how we want to address it moving forward, let me know. We can talk about that as well. We don't have, I think, a huge rush on this, but I think it's important to move relatively quickly at this stage, given that crossover is approaching. And if we want to see things move, we have to chime in. The bond bill, the public facilities bond, was heard previously in the Senate. The hearing date's coming up in the House. Right now, it's awaiting a report in the Senate. Same thing with the prospective employees and volunteers criminal history records check bill. We're just kind of holding pattern for that one as well. The local building energy performance standards bill is awaiting a committee report, as well as inventory and disposition of housing and solar energy production. So lots of things haven't moved yet. I think, given the nature of everything being costly, even if they don't have a fiscal note, and just concerns about that being the priority, just looking at funding. A lot of things are moving really slowly this session so far, but I anticipate some things will either just not move or move very quickly. So I'll keep you posted as we see things moving forward. This is another bill that is awaiting committee report. The hotel rental tax that we talked about similarly is awaiting a committee report. The water and sewer system, cybersecurity planning and assessments, also in the same status. So that's where we are with those. The blueprint for Maryland's future, I know you're having another speaker about that today. But there's a lot of discussion about, what to cut, what to restore, where things are. So if we continue to have any new thoughts on this topic, let's keep that dialogue going amongst ourselves, and I can continue to weigh in either just by making some calls or if we want to write more letters. But this issue, so everyone's seeing, there's a big problem with how we're going to fund things and how it's going to happen. And there's a lot of, disagreement on how we're going to get there. So the blueprint continues to be another hot topic. The moderate income housing fee in lieu of prohibition is awaiting a committee report, as is this bill, which is dealing with permits and inspections for the unpaid personal property taxes. That has not moved yet. And we are also waiting to hear on what happens with the police accountability investigation records relating to unfounded and exonerated complaints. And then a few others, collective bargaining, local government employees. This one is awaiting a committee report in the Senate. In the House, the first reading is in the rules and executive nominations. So that one's unlikely to go anywhere, at least the Senate version, but we'll see. The income tax subtraction for theft and fraud losses is waiting for some action. So is the homestead property tax credit for first-time home buyers. The Maryland Heritage Areas Authority funding grants, same thing. I know this is very interesting. I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but all of these bills are awaiting a committee report. There's a hearing scheduled for the Cyber Maryland program revisions. That's coming up. So I'll keep you posted when I learn more about what's going on there, but that's coming up, I think, today and next week. We also have the employment wages deductions for employees in House rules and executive nominations for the House version, and the Senate version has been withdrawn. So I don't see that going anywhere. I also just created this for you. It's in your packet, so you could see the different initiatives that have been proposed for Carroll County bond funds in the capital budget. I'm not sure if you've seen these or you were aware of all of them, but this is what's been requested. We obviously don't know what's going to be funded yet, but there are some, a variety of projects here. So if you have any questions about any of these, let me know and I can look into more about all of those. But that's what I have for you today. I do have a handful of requests from some of the counties for updates on a lot of bills that their interest groups are tracking. And I'm going to be reaching out to them to give them some updates. And for any of those that I think that will interest you, I'll incorporate them in next week's presentation. But it looks like we have hit, overcome that midway point where things are starting to speed up, and I anticipate in the next week and a half, more and more talking about money and really kind of showing how the rest of the session is going to shape up.
Yes, it's a lot of information. I know we do not have legislative committee this week or next week, I don't believe. And yeah, Pam, just staying on top of these. The energy one obviously is very important. The pieces of the blueprint, and where they're going to go are going to be also extremely important. I'm surprised we're getting such pushback on the hunting thing on Sundays. I mean, we're talking 6 days.
That's unfortunate that
So-
people, even within our own county, have
Yeah.
decided to come out and oppose that, considering it's on private property.
Right.
I thought that was pretty obvious to people, but I guess not.
Yeah, I thought that was an easy one. The positions that you are putting on here, those are the MACO positions, correct?
Yes, I put the MACO positions on there, and then the statuses for where things are within the General Assembly or in the notes on your packet. So you have that as well.
Okay, I appreciate it. And just for the good of the order and, those listening, Commissioner Kyler is the head of the Education Subcommittee. I'm on the Legislative, or actually Taxation Subcommittee, and then we both serve on the Legislative Committee for MACO. As all of these bills get pushed through, and there's a lot of them. Okay. No, appreciate it.
On the hunting bill, how hard have we pushed crop damage? We've talked about rental rates for farming county properties, and we're not getting as much money as some of the other people are because there's no hunting there, and the deer damage, deer, groundhogs, and slugs damage so many crops in Carroll County that, and I know you can get permits and do herd management and all that, but regular hunting helps that deer population big time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's really focused on that. By looking at the ones opposed, they don't care. They're not
Yeah.
farmers.
And I appreciate you bringing that up because I did provide some of those key points to Pam and the delegation in Annapolis. Crop damage is actually a direct result of overpopulation of deer. So, I mean, that was one talking point. The other one being, again, this is private property, and people are extremely careful on their own property and have a right to use it. There are 11 other counties in the state of Maryland that actually do this already. So, yeah, a bit surprised, but we'll see what happens. And if we don't get it right this year, we'll try again next year. And processing, organic, healthy meat for people's families. There are a lot of people in Carroll County that actually fill that freezer up or in the fall and early winters. For that very purpose. So, yeah, I appreciate you both mentioning that and appreciate the board's support in this all along, and we'll see what happens. So thank you.
Any other
And I can
questions
follow
or
up with
comments?
the committee and kind of gauge, where they are. Just because there's opposition doesn't mean that they're not hearing all of the points that you've mentioned, which were in our testimony, or whether it was written or verbal. So it's not, it's still part of the process.
So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week, if not before.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is Blueprint Fiscal Compliance and State Changes to the Blueprint Formula with Carroll County Public Schools. And as you're getting seated, do we have any callers for public comment on this agenda item?
I have no callers on the line, sir.
There's no call.
He has no
Okay, and we have some here, so can you go ahead and call them? And
Yes. First is Joshua Wilhide.
I talked before that.
That microphone, yes.
But the school board's not presenting first. I talk first and then they present.
Do they have
We
already?
could-
say again, I have no
sorry.
idea what.
He's asking whether the school board should present first before.
I felt like we need to do public comment because that may change what they address as they address it.
I think we.
And for the
I reclaim my time.
Yeah, start with your.
I reclaim my time.
Yeah,
So I am.
chill out. Can
recla-
you start with your name and
re-
address, and your time will go back to 3 minutes, and that part won't even count to 3 minutes.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Joshua Hyde. Thank you. Thank you for giving me 3 minutes back. I'm here today. I'm trying to keep it under 3 minutes. What I'm here today is trying to focus on facts. I've had some emails back and forth from various different members of the Carroll County Board, and there was actually a little bit of wisdom in there. So I'm actually going to read you the last sentence from the last email that I received that said, correct facts will help your argument, not emotional displays. So I'm here today to try to convince of the correct facts and not have an emotional display. Apparently, I've already failed that, but my goal here is to show you that I am here to fight for my children. I am not here for a partisan issue, and I am not here to try to do anything except get you guys to understand that the school system needs to be properly funded. From the town hall that we learned last night, that the superintendent did answer my question directly, that if they received the total $57 million, that they would not have to cut any of the 92 positions that are being suggested to be cut. And so in order to do that, I want to state some facts towards you guys today. So directly from the meeting minutes that came from the March 4th meeting that we were here on Tuesday, I'm reading from the Carroll County public website that says, Mr. Zelinski provided a review of the state budget and the uncertainty of how the final state budget will impact Carroll County, specifically schools, community college, health department, the libraries. He explained the details that led to a $69.5 million unassigned fund balance at the end of fiscal year 25. Mr. Zelinski cautioned that even though there may be a fund balance at the end of fiscal year 25, it does not guarantee that the same funds will be available the other years, and the Board of Commissioners should consider the balance a one-time fund. So I understand that you guys, the fact is, are sitting on a $69.5 million windfall that we could use to fund the $57 million. There is no excuse as to why that windfall should not be going towards the public school systems. I understand that the funding may not be here next year, but the commissioners this morning even told us if we want to change this, we have to fight it at Annapolis. If you want us to fight it at Annapolis, you want me to go down there and do the same thing that I'm doing here, I will. This is not a partisan issue. I am not here to fight left or right. I am here to fight for my children. You need to give us time. You want me to go fight in Annapolis? You want me to call them? I will. I am not afraid to. But you have to give us the opportunity. You telling me that you have the funds and you're not funding is not acceptable. I yield my time back.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next is Sharon Wilhide.
My name is Sharon Wilhide. I am a parent of 2 children at Mechanicsville Elementary School. I am also a 15-year educator in special education as well as general education. As my husband said, it's a question of our children. We are here because we love our children. I know that my child is struggling this year with the increase in a class of 30, and she is not on an IEP. She is not even failing. She is in advanced academics for both reading and math. On the COGAT test, which measures across the county, and it's actually a nationwide measure to see how students perform, she scored in the 99th percentile in all areas. Her teacher met with us and said she's never had a student who got that high of a score. And this year, every day she comes home and complains about the distractions of 29 students in her class. Some of the other third grade classes have 30 students. Children cannot learn in a class of 42 students, 44 students for Eldersburg. Someone mentioned about there are people in Carroll County who don't have children in the school system. They don't have grandchildren in the school system, which is true, absolutely. But our children are our future. And if we don't invest in our future and our children today, people will leave Carroll County. I love Carroll County. I didn't grow up in Carroll County. I grew up in Baltimore County. But I came here to go to McDaniel to get my master's degree, and I fell in love with Carroll County. It's people, it's land, it's beautiful, everything about it. It's schools. That's why I started teaching in Carroll County. If you don't properly fund our school system, people will leave. The property values will go down. Your tax revenue and the tax that you get will go down if our schools go down. They have already gone down. When we purchased our house in 2019, the great schools for Mechanicsville's rating was a 10 out of 10. It is now a 7 out of 10. So we are already seeing a decline. Part of that is COVID, absolutely. We're not addressing the elephant in the room that our children were drastically affected by COVID, and our test scores have gone down since that. And that's across the state. That's not just here, across the country. But my point is that if we don't invest in our future and invest in our children, our schools will go down, which means our property values will go down, which means people will leave. We border Howard County, and Howard County Public Schools has one of the highest performing school systems in the state of Maryland. So if as a parent, you have the choice to live in Carroll County or Howard County, and Howard County has a significantly better school system. People will leave. People will leave, period. I had something else I wanted to say, and I just lost my train of thought. My main issue is that I know most of you are new to the commissioners, and understandably so. The commissioners have not funded the school system for years, which is proven by Dr. McCabe's comment last night, that they have 24 people at central office. A central office should not have 24 employees. That's horrible. And that proves the fact that the school system has not been properly funded for years because they've been making cuts to meet the previous commissioners, I understand you're new, the previous commissioners' lack of funding. Thank you.
Thank you. No others and no others on the phone?
I have no one else on the phone, sir.
Oh,
I didn't know where to turn in the,
yeah, over here. Thank you. Benjamin Cranack?
That is correct.
Okay.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to the commission. I know this is quite a trying issue that we're all faced with, and united we stand, Carroll County, divided we fall. So I also encourage all of my fellow citizens to please reach out to the Maryland General Assembly so that they understand how critical and important this issue is for not only the parents, but all of the citizens of Carroll County. We are playing with fire here, and we all need to come together, and we need to prioritize the education of our children. It's the most important thing that we can do for the future generation, which I think everybody in this room and in the county agrees is probably our most important asset. And I just want to come here today to express to the commission the high level of engagement and importance as a parent to 2 children in Eldersburg Elementary that this issue is. And thank you, everyone, for your support and hard work on this very, 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 very important issue. Thank you.
Do you mind saying your full name again,
Yes.
but so it's over the speed?
Absolutely. My name is Benjamin McFeely Cranack, and I live in Eldersburg. And my kids go to Eldersburg Elementary.
Thank you.
Love Carroll County. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Anna Saliba? I don't know if I pronounced it.
Anna Saliba. I live in Westminster. My kids are going to Mechanicsville Elementary School. I have a 5th grader this year and a 1st grader. As the lady previously said, my kids, they excel. I have a boy in special academics, both maths and ELA. He's one of the brightest in his class, but in 5th grade, there are already 28 kids. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I don't know when one of you, it's been last time in a school, in a classroom, and see how tight the space is. I volunteer there weekly. Last year I volunteered twice for both classes, for both of my kids. I'm doing everything what I can do from my side to be there and help the school. But I think it's time to CCPS and you guys to stay together, and you need us to do more. We help. I'm happy to do more than what I do already. But I can't see my kids in a class of 42. My boy, he struggles with the distraction in the class already, and it's tight, and it's hot, and it's smelly, and it's no space for more kids. I don't know where the numbers are there on the paper saying that there are 22 kids or whatever they are. I have friends who they go in the middle school, and again they say it's 18 in the class. They are not, they are 30 in the class. I don't know, maybe I'm not reading well, maybe I'm not as clever as you, I don't know what to say, but destroying a system what's working right now and going down to the ground will be hard to build it up again. I grew up in a communist system. It's not great. I know we can't make everybody happy. We can't. But going to make everybody happy and destroy everything what is done, it's not. This is supposed to be America, right? We're supposed to stand for our rights. We're supposed to fight for education. If we destroy the education, where are we going from here? Where are we going? What should I do? I can buy my own computer for now, right, for my kid, if we take the computers from the kids. We're supposed to know to teach the kids for the future, for a great, right? Computers, they are our futures, right? And now we take them away? What these kids is gonna learn into a system where we're going back to pen and to chalkboard and nothing else? Thank you for understanding, but this is the truth. Just think how much we work to build something, and now we're destroying. That's all. We're destroying, and it's gonna take 100 years to build it up again, if we ever can build again what's here. They are so great. I moved here 4 years ago, and I chose Carroll County because of the school. I'm coming 4 years in Delaware, I've been, right? I moved Carroll County, my husband worked in Jessup and different things. I could
Please
go
finish
somewhere
your
else.
thought.
Thank you. But I moved because of Carroll County. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Christina Dembiak.
Thank you. My name's Christina Dembeck. I have a 6th grade son at Sykesville Middle. I live in Sykesville. I'm a recent resident. I just moved to Carroll County, Maryland at the end of November from out of state. Moved here from Tennessee and did a lot of research on the schools that I wanted my son to attend. We spent a lot of time and effort deciding where we were going to settle. My husband works in Baltimore, and we decided that Carroll County was the right place to land because of the schools. My son is academically gifted. He is in honors and gifted classes, and we were specifically looking for the AP pipeline for him. And now to hear that these services might be removed, to hear that devices such as their one-to-one computers will be removed, to hear that his class sizes will increase beyond the 30 plus that they already are at Sykesville Middle. These are all devastating cuts. These are all nightmares that I'm facing after having just purchased a house at the end of November. We're faced with a decision that we might have to leave. We might have to uproot our family again just so that we can get the support that my son deserves. I have done nothing but study this issue since we got here and since we started to learn about these proposed cuts. There's been a lot of finger pointing and a lot of passing of the blame. Depending on who you ask, they'll tell you whose fault this is. They'll tell you who to contact to make it better. But regardless of whatever previous situations and circumstances have brought us to this point right now, it's undeniable that you all sit on a solution. And you owe it to our children, to their academic futures, to the absolute underscoring of their success for their future, to fix this problem right now and give us the opportunity to work together to prevent it from happening again. I'm not interested in whose fault it was, when it started, or where it came from. I'm interested in how to protect my son's academic success moving forward. So I'm asking you to please fund this year, prevent these cuts, prevent this devastating impact that is going to happen to our secondary students next year if this has to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Molly Dolan.
Hi, I'm Molly Dolan. Very nervous to be up here, but I'm glad to be able to speak on behalf of a lot of people that live in the South Carroll area. I am a mom. I am actually a single mom now. I have 3 children, 1 in Worms and 2 at Carrolltown Elementary School. I feel very, very blessed to be able to live in this county. I've actually worked in this county at Carroll County Youth Service Bureau I've worked at Carroll Community College Foundation. I am a nonprofit fundraiser. I now work in Johns Hopkins. So I know all about, all of the things that are happening in this country and the devastating impacts it can have. And right now, I want to advocate and speak on behalf of our children, especially in South Carroll, where, if I'm understanding and reading everything correctly, the biggest and most negative impact is going to be happening with taking away these important positions, reallocating resources away from these schools, and then not providing any of the support to these teachers, but instead making them work in very crowded classrooms and taking away the specialists and supports that they rely on to differentiate education, to support IEP plans. As about IEP plans, speaking of that, my daughter Claire, sorry, I should have called her out like that, but she has an IEP, which we learned about in second grade. She was a kindergarten during COVID, forced to be on virtual education, really suffered that year. Thank God we were able to, discover that she had ADHD, she got diagnosed, she's getting wonderful support and care. But to what other people were saying, if you increase the size of the classroom, that's a lot of distraction. And while she's going to have the support from special education, she's not going to be able to have the support, and neither will the other kids, of these specialists that go in to help support all the various needs of our children, those with IEPs, those without, right? So I feel like there's a lot of things that are at stake here. And to other people's point, I moved here, I live here for this education. I live here because I feel like this is a unified county. I've seen you all partner together, work together when I worked at CCYSB at the community college level. I don't think you're the enemy, but like others have said, you are sitting on the solution, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes alongside you to support the future of our children and to stop this from happening. Because once it's broken down, I'm afraid we cannot rebuild it. And like others have said, we would have to be forced to move away from this county. And I don't know how I can't afford to bring my kids to a private education. That is just not in the cards for us. And I don't think it's fair or right that I should have to even consider this end. And we were willing to fight for what's right, okay? So please let us do whatever we can to support you in this effort, and please approve this additional funding to cover the deficit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Renee Cross.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I would like to begin by saying I'm a fellow Republican, and I voted for you, Mr. Rothstein. Mr. Kyler, I see a friend in you because you have always been a proponent for education. You were on the school board for many years, and I saw the good work you did there. I think that we're at a major crossroads here for our school system. But it's also a very important crossroads for our property values. And the last meeting that you guys had, we discussed, there was a long discussion about property values. I was under the impression that as the Eldersburg area, we're one of the biggest contributors to taxes in Carroll County. And I understand that the state of Maryland has put you into a very difficult situation that will cause major damage to our schools. I'm here to speak with you about our school system and therefore our property values and our county tax base. I live in the Eldersburg-Sykesville area, where we have a high density of very expensive homes. Many people move to the community as commuters, and they bring big city tax dollars and income taxes and increased earning power. We bring property value and income taxes to our county. The Eldersburg-Sykesville area is a big money maker for Carroll County. Why? Why do people move to the southern end of the county instead of other places in the Baltimore or DC area? Well, schools. Young families move to this community and travel to their jobs so that their children can go to our schools. The community in the southern end of the county has been a point of pride for our county for many years. And gentlemen, we need to invest in this tax base, or we stand to lose money from those decreasing property values. People are not going to buy homes for schools that are horrible. I'm sorry. I understand that that operationally you might not be able to commit $57 million, and I don't think it's reasonable for the state of Maryland to expect that, but I do think that there's some sort of solution that can be met here. Our schools need something to keep teachers in our classrooms so that our property values don't plummet. We can disagree with the state of Maryland, but we need to stay focused on our community the way that we always have. Leadership in the state doesn't seem to care too much about our community right now, and I believe that they see us as, unfortunately, a Republican problem. While Carroll County invests in itself, if Carroll County invests in itself, we can work diligently to change state mandates, but I don't think we can afford to let our schools suffer in the meantime. Our property values will suffer, and the rest of our county will suffer, as Sector 1, the southern end of the county, has always provided major tax dollars. Carroll County has always been small but mighty.
Please finish your thoughts and
sorry.
please state your name. I know.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I am a Republican to talk to you about what I believe is right in ensuring manageable class sizes is what's right. Carroll County is a bedroom community, so we need to make sure that our bedroom is attractive for people to come and live here, to maintain our property values and our tax dollars. The way I see it, gentlemen, you have two choices, and they're not easy choices, and I'm sorry for them. You can come out of this situation looking not super great to our communities. Or you can look like heroes. You can save our babies, you can save our property values, and you can save our communities just for right now until we can make a difference. My name is Renee, and thank you for the extra time.
you. Next is Rachel Ricard?
Good morning. My name is Rachel Ricard. I have 4 children in the Carroll County Public School System. My family moved here in 2021. My husband finished his time serving with the United States Marine Corps. We're not from Maryland, but we decided to stay here and to work here, and we were very pleased to find Eldersburg Schools, and we love our neighborhood. And like others have mentioned, I felt somewhat devastated when I found out we were going to be losing teachers and our class sizes were going to balloon in our school. My kids go to Linton Springs Elementary School. We're going to lose 9 teachers. Our class sizes are going to increase by 8 kids. My 4th graders currently are in I have 2 twin girls who are in 4th grade, and they are in a class of 29, and by the time my kindergartner gets to 4th grade, her class will be 37, going by those projections. Already, our school is a bit overcrowded. Our teachers are heroes. I'm very grateful for what they're doing. I can see that they are stressed. I can see that they are stressed by the blueprint. The idea of having to commute possibly quite a bit further than they are right now to work in other places in the county is not appealing to them. They are paid much less than they would be in Baltimore County or some of the surrounding counties, and I think that's going to be a real draw for them when we start asking them to teach classes of over 40. I already know teachers who or a teacher who resigned from Sykesville Middle School because the class sizes were too big. And then with the changes, they're supposed to increase by 12 students per class. And so I humbly ask, I petitioned the state. I've started a petition. I've written the state leaders for years, actually, because I'm on the PTA advocacy committee at our school. We've been doing everything we can to put pressure in that direction, but we also feel like the county needs to step up and help. And if things aren't going to work out with the state, then we really need the county to step up and help our schools not have these devastating impacts. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Marcia Herbert.
Good morning, gentlemen. Marcia Herbert, past president of the Carroll County Board of Education. Hi, Debbie, and hi, Tim, and my crew that I used to work for. 9 years ago, Donna Savigny and I campaigned on working together with the commissioners. I had been in attendance where a superintendent had jumped across the table and lunged at a commissioner. ever since then, we have really tried to work together. So it is the betterment of the Carroll County Public School System. Commissioner Guerin, that was a great priority Carol this morning. And I will say that Carroll County Public School System is one of your best advertisements to come to Carroll County. We need to work together. I think Cindy McCabe is one of the best superintendents in the state. She was out in front of everyone 2 years ago, going to town meetings and telling everyone what was actually going to happen. And it was not a surprise to me or any of the other board members, but now it's hit the pavement. I hope you all can work together and work this out. And I really need to thank the delegation because I know they're working behind the scenes really hard. And this is a no-win situation. It's not a win for our students. It's not a win for our citizens of Carroll County to take on this burden, and it was an unfunded mandate. So I hope that you all continue to work together for the betterment of the children of Carroll County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Any more cards?
No other public comment, correct? So your guys' turn.
All right, good morning, commissioners.
How are you, Dr. McCabe?
How am I?
Yeah.
I am standing.
You look fantastic, I gotta say.
Well, thank you. A little bit of makeup hides all the pneumonia in the world, you know. No, but you may have heard rumor of some of the issues that we're dealing with right now in the school system. As Ms. Herbert just said, you know, the rubber's meeting the road now with Blueprint. We've been talking about it for 3 years. We've been planning for it for 3 years, but now in FY26 we have to come into 50% fiscal compliance with the state, and so we turned in our plan to the state. It was approved, and we've been discussing it, communicating it, trying to make sure everyone is aware of what that means. And, you know, this is a difficult time to have that conversation because it's during budget time and we're dealing with two different budgets here. We're dealing with our operating budget, which we would be doing any year around this time. And we're also dealing with the budget that comes with the Blueprint compliance. So what I just want to start with before handing it over to Mr. O'Neill is that the board has adopted a budget that asks you for $13 million for the operating budget. That is for the things like keeping outdoor school open, being able to complete the third year of our contracts with CASE and AFSCME and food service, keeping one-to-one devices in the hands of our kids, things like that. But then we have the Blueprint fiscal compliance piece, and that's where the board is asking for $44 million. That $44 million would be used so that we didn't have to move people from the southern part of the county to other schools. Instead, we would just hire more people, hire more resources for the schools that we need to provide more resources for according to Blueprint. So that's why we're in the situation that we're in right now. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, and good morning.
Morning.
You have the PowerPoint on the screen, but also a copy from the superintendent's town hall meeting last evening. That also will be on our website later today. And then we also provided you the official report from the superintendent's Blueprint Fiscal Compliance Work Group. That'll give you more detailed analysis, background to the extent you want to pursue it. That document is and has been on the school system's website since January 8 as well. And you have the PowerPoint. We don't intend to present the PowerPoint. we want to hit some highlights and give you plenty of time for conversation or questions if you want. So superintendent made the distinction between these two things that are not the same, but they happen to bump into each other occasionally, the operating budget timeline process, and then this whole thing called fiscal compliance under Blueprint. So the operating budget piece is that we're anticipating, at least at this stage in the timeline, about $9.3 million in new ongoing revenue, unrestricted revenue that we can use for fiscal '26. And at the same time, we're looking at some pretty significant expected expenditure increases in two different ways. So the way you're seeing them right now on this slide, we grouped together the things that we would call inflationary impacts, or just sort of the increased cost of doing business. That's that $12.9 million in total. If you wanted to break that down, I can. I'll tell you that the three biggest numbers adding up to that 12.9 are increased utility costs under our latest award of bid, employee and other insurances, and retiree for that matter insurances, and then about $1.9 million for the ongoing renewal of computer devices. Some of that, of course, driven by the increase in student devices during and after COVID. And then separate from the $12.9 million, we have 5 unions in Carroll County Public Schools. We had multi-year contracts with some of those unions. 2 of them are the acronyms CASE and AFSCME, have a third-year commitment in fiscal '26 to a salary package. Collectively, that's about $3 million, and we don't have projected ongoing revenue for those things combined. So the overall sort of deficit to fill or the need to balance is that $6.6 million. The $9.3 million in ongoing revenue is state and local combined, so that includes what you have in the FY26 plan for the Board of Ed. So that's the operating budget side. I'd also add that beyond that $3 million for CASE and AFSCME to honor a signed agreement, there is no compensation in this budget for any other employees of Carroll County Public Schools. So we'll have to deal with that and negotiate that at the bargaining table. Superintendent talked about the way the board made their requests in 2 parts, so I'm going to skip that and try to dive right into fiscal compliance, and for something like the 100th time try to explain something that's very, very hard to understand, and I usually walk away thinking, I wonder if I made a dent.
And you know,
John,
you want to go first?
Well, I think, we've seen these slides, and we've seen them multiple times, and you have explained it very well multiple times, and you're right. Every time you explain it, I come up with another dozen questions, because it's a very complex situation. Can we start with the operating budget?
Sure.
And, there's this, comments that were made last night at the town hall that the county has not funded CCPS since 2009. And I couldn't figure out where that was coming from, except for the 6 years or 7, whatever I've been here. When CCPS asks for an operating budget number, we have provided that to the schools. And it has been above the maintenance of effort, and we use that term. So if I can either ask you or Ted to come up and share with us one more time maintenance of effort, and then why you would be asking for more than that.
Sure.
And if the county has complied with that, which I believe we have. But people walked away last night that the county has not funded the schools adequately. And I'm not sure where that disconnect is.
Sure. Great question.
And I had a similar question. If I've got it right, between fiscal year 15 and 25, if we'd have done maintenance effort, it would have been 197 million, plus or minus. We actually did 239 million. So in those 10 years, we're 41.3 million. And I know it's obvious by comments, people don't understand one-time money versus operating and ongoing. That's 41.3 every year forever. that's our new maintenance of effort. And that's 21% that we funded over maintenance of effort in the last 10 years. So, and last year, we worked with you guys to try to get you ahead of Blueprint. We were naive, maybe you were naive, but we thought we were a year ahead of Blueprint and maybe could avoid some of this, and we gave more money, not quite as much as you asked for, but more. And isn't that all correct?
Yes, so you've given us more than MOE. I think where folks are saying that we haven't been funded properly is that in the context of Blueprint, I've been talking about the fact that between 09 and 19, we had to cut about 375 instructional positions, which was about $40 million. And if we hadn't had to do that, if we still had those 375 instructional positions right now, I wouldn't be having to move teachers and resources from the southern area schools. I would have those positions still at central office, still in other places in the district to take from and reorganize to put in the schools that need those according to Blueprint. So that's the way that my colleagues around the state are addressing Blueprint. They've got enough folks in their central office and in other places that they can reorganize and not take any of their schools down to the place where they don't have a media specialist, or they have classes of 44, or they don't have a reading specialist. And so that's the main difference of where Carroll County is versus everyone else.
Yeah,
But that was because of declining enrollment.
Right.
That caused the state to give you less money.
Right.
And maybe 1 year during that period, Carroll County government did maintenance of effort, but other than that, each year, Carroll County commissioners gave you more money to help with the state giving you less, which
Right.
we couldn't cover it all. When
Right.
I say we, I was on your side
Yes,
then.
yes.
But it's tough.
It is.
And again, I don't know if the public understands, and it doesn't make a difference, the other people's pains. One county closed their middle schools.
Right.
Other counties are getting rid of teachers. And to your credit, you've preached this for multiple years and nobody wanted to believe you, but the other counties, even Baltimore City, are starting to feel some pain now.
When Blueprint started, and you started your town halls, I was right there with you, and we collectively together, the Board of Ed, like Marcia said, we were, like this, and because we saw this coming. We all saw this coming, and we all were working towards how to, minimize this impact, and thinking that we could work with the legislation to change the comp ed formulas, and I still have, a way forward with that, and we all do, and that's what Josh talked about, Delegate Stanko, last night. The funding 9 to 19, Blueprint was not a part of the equation back then.
Right.
So we funded what was necessary, 9 to 19. I'm not trying to say something we did that we didn't do, but I want to make sure that, we look at this with the operational dollars, and then we look at this with the Blueprint mandates. And I walked away last night with a feeling that a lot of folks felt that, or believe, that Carroll County government did not fund the Carroll County Public Schools adequately from 9 to 19. I was one of the people that moved here around the same time because of my kids going to schools, and we did. And if we didn't, I need to understand why we didn't.
Well, I wasn't the superintendent at the time.
Right.
But I can tell you that, during that time, I was the director of elementary schools, and Steve Guthrie would come to me and tell me how many positions I needed to cut
Right.
from my elementary schools, and that happened for 9 years as
Right.
I was that director of elementary schools. So we didn't add anything during that time. We didn't get to keep everything we had at that time. And it was because we were losing enrollment.
Right.
And that's part of the problem that we have now with Blueprint, is that right now we are 300 to 400 students short of what we thought we were going to have going into FY26. And so that's another part of the problem, is that as people decide not to move to Carroll County, we get less funding from the state. And so that compounds an already bad issue.
So because the impact on Tier 1 schools is District 5 plus Mechanicsville.
Yeah.
And that's where the populations are. But the state doesn't look at redistricting one part of the county, it looks at the entire county.
Right.
And there are schools in the entire county that have adequate facilities or appropriate facilities for our children. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
But nobody wants to move from one school to another because of the impact that it has now. The Marine wife and I have familiar with that, and it's challenging.
Look at, how would that affect what we need to do for Blueprint? Would that help us in any way as a county? And our transportation department has done analysis, and what we found is, and I'm going to simplify it right now, but it's much more complex than this. But the geographical disbursement of our students who are compensatory ed students do not make it easy for us to redistrict and ameliorate that piece of the Blueprint puzzle. And what I mean by that is, if we tried to do that, we would take a kid who currently has a half an hour bus ride or 35-minute bus ride, and they'd now have an hour and a half bus ride. So it's just, we're a very different community in that we are geographically large as a county, and where our comp ed kids live versus where our non-comp ed kids live is far away from each other. And so it doesn't make it practical for us to redistrict as a county to make this better.
And you guys tried to teach me. I ran for Board of Ed, and I wanted to redistrict. I used to say redistricting isn't a four-letter word. I guess it was Bob Lord told me, you only redistrict for academic achievement or to save money, not. And I keep hearing about these overcrowded schools, and and so it makes it very hard. I understand that.
It does.
And I think I was going to say a little while ago when John was talking about Blueprint, it wasn't even so much a question of us not sounding the alarm about it. It was also Blueprint not being sure of Blueprint itself. I mean, I think it was up until this past summer, for example, one of the questions that we had was that Blueprint requires so much funding per pupil depending on a category that they fell into. For example, English is a second language or developmentally disabled. What happens if a student tapped more than one category? If there was more than one there you go, right, to the schools. If a grand total of 13 point something. And the lack of, we're figuring we were going to be ahead of Blueprint like Commissioner Kyler was talking about. But that lack of clarity, that lack of certainty from Blueprint was not met by an addition of time for us to attempt to adjust to it. I mean, up until the last minute, I think they're still making certain changes to it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you attempt to compensate for something that is consistently, the goalposts are consistently being moved, right?
Right.
And I think it was also mentioned a few minutes ago about the surplus fund that we do have right now, our fund balance. would love to be able to say, yeah, I would vote right now to give every single cent of that 57 million to the schools. The problem is that 57 million isn't just from last year that we've accumulated. You're talking about a number of years of accumulation over time. And if we did spend 57, this I'm just me speaking for myself right now, it's simply ghastly mathematics. You know, if we did spend that $57 million this year, and the situation with Blueprint did not change next year, we're going to be how much in debt to attempt to we'll be the same situation all over again. You know, my heart breaks about the situations that are being caused. I was in Tawnytown Elementary School, that's where I went, right? And I'm in one of those areas where Blueprint is trying to target to reallocate more resources, right? And speaking to individuals, to citizens in District 1 up in the northwest part of the county, you know, they are terrified at what's going on as well, but at the same time, sound path forward. But again, I just, you know, trying to rely on several years of accumulated fund balance to get us through one to be in the same place next year, I think is a challenging statement to pursue.
Yeah, and I will just add to that. Since Blueprint rolled out, myself as well as most of my staff have been on weekly calls, weekly meetings with the state on Blueprint. And you're right, you know, you have to take a large and complex bill and law and figure out how to implement that, how to operationalize that down to the dollar, down to the person, down to the FTE. And we've been trying to do that weekly for the last 3 years. And yes, you know, the state has struggled, just as we have struggled to define everything. And, you know, it's just been recently that we've been able to really get down to the detail level. And, you know, unfortunately, it's time as well that we need to implement at 50% compliance for next year.
Right, which is why I think Commissioner Guerin had mentioned earlier this morning that, you know, the work that all of us are doing, including especially our delegation, to try to buy us time to contend with that change or the changes that we've had to face with Blueprint, I think is incredibly important. And so, you know, I will echo my fellow commissioners who have already complimented you for that, Commissioner Guerin, that, you know, this is a question of making sure that we are heard. And this is, and exactly to your point, Dr. McCabe, and to Ms. Herbert's point, speaking earlier, you know, I know of other counties where the boards of education and the boards of councilmen or commissioners are in adversarial relations with each other. You know, we've tried as hard as we can to work with each other, to communicate with each other. And I mentioned this morning during my priority carol that, you know, I spent quite a bit of time yesterday with other allied agencies trying to address some problems up in District 1. And the same is true of us. I mean, with quarterly meetings that we have, I mean, we're always emailing and talking to each other, and you know, we certainly do not have an adversarial relationship, and that's a blessing.
Absolutely.
You know, but at the end of the day, it does come down to how are we going to fund our kids? I don't mean, I could be best friends with somebody or somebody else, but the fact is, how are we going to find the necessary dollars that are operationally going to be able to fund the Blueprint? The operational piece, I feel like we can put our hands around. It's this Blueprint dollar amount, you know, and I shared it with this before, and I'm open to sharing it all the time, is how do we get the state to meet us in the middle somewhere? How do we put a gesture forward where the state, the AIB, the, you know, legislators are going to say, let's push this to the right, these requirements. Let's, instead of 50%, make it 45% or 40% mandatory. What does that look like? It's not going to be all or nothing. Like Commissioner Guerin said, we're not going to impose a tax of 25%. That's just, you know, there's no way. But if we do impose a tax, which is a culture change in this county, if it's back to where it was back in the late 90s, it'll bring us 8-9 million more operational dollars. Another Starbucks, okay? That's nice for me to say down in Eldersburg where I can absorb that. other folks can't or shouldn't, be torn to. But that's something that, we're going to have to consider. And I will say it's important to consider if there is something to reciprocate, if the state's going to be willing to say, yes, we see you moving in this direction and we will move in the other direction, meet you somewhere in the middle so we don't have this
Well,
impact.
I don't want to speak for the state, but in all of the meetings that we've been having down in Annapolis and with the AIB and MSDE and conversations with state board members, I can tell you that I think it really helps our situation if it looks like Carroll County is doing something to help itself, as well as asking for help
Right.
at the state level.
I agree.
And just real quick, just to be clear on that one point about we did raise recordation tax rate last year. So we have been moving in that direction to try to compensate for what's coming.
We changed, I agree, we changed the culture that we're willing to look at revenue. That's really what it was, because it wasn't a large impact, as we know, but the impact was a cultural impact.
It's significant, right?
And that's huge. But now, if we're targeting this, that would obviously be very significant. We can't do it with capital funds. I mean, I know people say, well, you got 50 some odd million. It doesn't work, We're not entrepreneurial, as a county. We're not designed to be that way. We have a AAA bond rating for a specific reason, because of how we manage our fiscal commitments. So using something, but yeah. Okay.
And I've got back to Carroll County part, which again, I appreciate what you guys are doing in Annapolis with AIB, with Rachel Heiss, with some of the delegates. And I know her hands are somewhat tied by what the House and Senate will agree to. And it makes it tough. So if we can do something to help, let us know. But I want to touch on what Commissioner Rothstein just said about fund balance. So I brought up where we were, which is we're 10th in the state of us funding you. Now, because of the state, that still isn't a bottom line pretty picture, but we're in the top half of the state funding our schools, so that we're not underfunding. But now I'll touch on that. 3 of your board members now want $296 million, or 23.8% more than what you had. Unfortunately for you, 2 of your board members say you don't need a penny. That makes it a tough situation. But something token on taxes may be fair to Carroll County. To raise taxes enough to fund this isn't fair to Carroll County. And I look at our budget process, because of last year being positive, we're starting out, I think, Ted Holler, about 13 million in the plus rather than 5 million in the hole. If 45% of that, which is about what goes to the schools, that's about 6 million more than the 7.2. But fund balance is one-time money. I know the public doesn't understand what that would do to MOE, and we couldn't afford it next year, and you couldn't either. You have a fund balance. I'm not sure how big it is, but I've got to ask you, would you use fund balance to continue outdoor school, an ongoing expense? It would be fiscally irresponsible, wouldn't it?
Well, that's something that we've considered. We always, as you know, being our former board president, we always look at that. We try to keep 3% in our fund balance, and every year we look at what is responsible to to use, to spend money on that are one-time costs instead of ongoing costs. There have been times that we have used our fund balance to pay for ongoing costs, for instance, certain positions that we thought we needed. At one point, it was security positions that we really felt timeliness was of the essence, and we funded those with ongoing, and then we're able, 2 years down the line to roll that into our operating budget. We've discussed outdoor school, and should we use that money for a year? We know we won't be able to do that every year because it's an ongoing expense. So, we're at a place where we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can and trying to spend that fund balance on one-time expenditures as much as possible.
And my understanding, probably, the state rules what MOE is. If we plastered 40 million of one-time money to pay you, the state's going to tell us that increased our MOE by that, which means we need to do it next year and next year and next year. So we can't afford that. That's fiscally irresponsible to use one-time money for any of that. It's just, yes, I know you don't understand finance, so shake your head all you want, but it's fiscally irresponsible, trust me. I've done bigger budgets than either one of these, and trust me, it's fiscally irresponsible.
And I think that I'll just clarify one thing here that I think has been out there in the community, and that is difficult to understand, is that we are 24th out of 24 districts in the state as far as state and local combined for per pupil funding. So that's not saying that we're 24th out of 24 in local funding. It's when you take the local and state funding together, we're 24th out of 24.
And because the state's consistently decreased their.
Yeah, and it's wealth equalized.
We're 10th and 17th if you want it
Right.
broken into 10th in the state in local per pupil funding, 17th in the state and state per pupil funding. Those two numbers together add up to 24 out of 24 in the state.
Yeah. And like I say, and I know you guys are fighting hard. And again, I'll touch on it. The fact that 40% of your board says they don't need a penny, while three or 60% want more than we can afford to give, it makes it a tough decision.
I understand that.
I bet. I'm done with that. More than we do, you understand that.
But another issue, because it ties into, again, where Commissioner Aaron was starting this morning about the state. The state also, that the intent of these open sessions allows us to have this conversation and those in the audience to be here if they'd like. But it goes much wider than that. It's televised, it's broadcast. The state listens to everything going on here. And somebody I know brought up about partisanship, and I know Delegate Stanko brought that up. This is not a partisan situation. Every jurisdiction are going through this. We're trying to figure this out in very different ways. Montgomery County is looking to raise their tax level well above ours, but above the state's limits to meet the demands. It's something we have absolutely no desire to do. Howard County has another equation they're doing, but they're all doing different things. And the reason I'm bringing that up is we have, I want to say, a friend in court. We have relationships with the governor's office and the legislation, and the gentleman, reached out and said, yes, I have a solution. Maybe a mix of revenue, it may be a mix of revenue, less services, state coming in, but we gotta figure out what that's gonna look like, and from your perspective, what that should look like, you know, so. Okay.
And one of the things that I know that you know, I brought up with the governor himself in talking about Blueprint, you know, I understand that there are goals and ideas that want to be promulgated by Blueprint. And so what I talked to him about was very simply, you know, what if we could demonstrate Blueprint equivalence, that is to say that we can meet what goals Blueprint has set, but in our own way, without equivalence without compliance. And he seemed to be sympathetic to the idea. Now, whether or not that'll gain traction down in Annapolis, that's a totally different question. But you know, we are trying to approach this as creatively as we can. I mean, if you can demonstrate that, yes, we are meeting standards set by Blueprint in our own way, then what does it matter how we get there as long as we get there?
Yes, we've been having similar conversations.
And one more thing I think I'd like you to touch on. Somebody mentioned Harry County, which particularly the last 4 years grinded me. Some of our test scores are better than Harry County. Harry County is very diverse. If you run to Harry County, be cautious which school system, which high school you attend. Some of them are pretty rough. But you guys, prior to Blueprint, test scores were high. You opened first during COVID of the other scores. COVID damaged Maryland very badly, but not Carroll County as much. Same thing with sports, same thing with extracurriculars. The kids got opportunities in Carroll County that the rest of the state, I think we were third in the country and the state of Maryland was 47th. But you guys have also worked, and I keep looking that way, but autism, special needs, some of the things Blueprint's trying to address, you're also ahead of the other counties on without Blueprint. And AIB, this whole evaluation of Blueprint is how much money do you throw at it, not success. And I don't know, I'm sure you're arguing that down there. We ought to get a waiver based on, yeah, we already did that. Yeah, our students are doing that. They've got a bill about the expense of educating kids out of the county or at private facilities. You've worked hard to minimize that, I think. So could you just touch on what,
Sure.
and I hate, everybody's told me I shouldn't be negative. What is Blueprint really helping Carroll County in?
Sure, we're doing lots of good, Mr. Kyler, especially with our students with disabilities. In Carroll County, along with other LEAs, we spend over the amount identified in the blueprint for what we should be doing for our students with disabilities. Every other LEA is in the same position, and proportionally, we're in a very reasonable place to do that. But we are doing many of the tenets of the blueprint currently. The resources that we have, they don't live in central office. Our resources live in our schools. At the elementary level, our reading specialists and our math specialists are a great example of that. They're embedded. They're part of the school. They're part of the staff. They're not floating around. They're not doing other tasks. They're working directly with kids and staff in assigned buildings. And you're right, in special education, we have a wide continuum of services that we provide to our students. We get very creative with our programming. We've been innovative in our ability to provide opportunities in general education, students with disabilities working with their non-disabled peers. So you're right, there are a lot of components of the blueprint that we're currently doing, and in my opinion, in our opinion, we feel like we're doing very well. We do have gaps that exist in our achievement. When you look at our student groups, however, when you look at our total student group, we achieve very high. When you look at the total achievement group of our student groups, like our students that receive special education services or our students who might receive free or reduced meals, when you rank those groups across the state, we're still very high. There are gaps that exist between internally our total student group and and some of those other student groups. However, when you look at those student group achievements across the state, we're doing very well. So again, we're always in the business of continuous improvement. We're always doing the best with what we have, and we're always innovative and thinking and changing. So the strategies that we use for our students, if they don't get us results, we change and we modify and adapt. And that's something that's been built into our culture and our practices for a long time. And I think that's why we have the achievement that we have. I know that's why that's the achievement that we have, is because we're always working and always building upon what we have and trying to make it better. And that's a testament to our staff. Staff across all levels work very hard for our kids, and we're very thankful for that.
And another Blueprint achievement is that we've achieved the $60,000 salary for a new teacher coming in, which hopefully will help us attract and keep good teachers. And we've been very successful in negotiating a career ladder. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we were, I think, one of the first, if not the first county in Maryland to turn in actually 2 career ladders, because there's a teachers union and a certificated administrative and supervisory union. And at the same time, as we sort of achieve the framework of the rungs, if you will, of what the career ladder is supposed to be, we achieved the ultimate minimum requirement under Blueprint of a $60,000 minimum salary. That was last year, and we achieved that with the $6 million beyond your planned amount that you provided us. And so it doesn't do much about fiscal compliance, but we did, in fact, I think Commissioner Kyler, one of you earlier said, I thought we got a little bit ahead of Blueprint last year. We did. Blueprint's many things. This is one thing that's a big challenge. There are other things that we would view as positives. In addition to that, college and career ready programs. We have an advanced placement diploma program in place. We were actually ahead. Ultimately, the AIB put some guardrails around dual enrollment. We were beyond those guardrails and had to sort of tailor back to them once they were enacted. Pre-K, although there's still much to do there with the space we have not yet built, like the space that exists in Carroll County Public Schools. We've maximized the public share of pre-K classrooms as envisioned under
Blueprint gonna throw that back at you? They thought 50% would be daycares, and it's not happening. You're doing well with the 50% you're required to do. What if they say, oh, you need to do 75, you need to do, what's that do to us?
So that's a major concern, Commissioner Kyler, and we wait for the light bulb to go on at the state level. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Sometimes there can be excellent theory, but in practice, maybe there's some disconnects or some gaps where theory meets practice, and that's not materializing. That concept that there would be that number of private providers just simply isn't materializing, not just in Carroll County, but anywhere. So far, there's not been a threat to sort of say then do 100%, but so far in last year's General Assembly, they sort of buckled down on that concept and increased the per pupil dollar amount and things like that to try to incentivize pre-K private providers, and it still hasn't materialized. I think they have to come to terms with that eventually, and I hope coming to terms with that doesn't mean make it 100% in the public schools, because that's, from a capital and an operating budget standpoint, that's a challenge we sort of can't overcome. May I share one other thing that Ted and I have agreed that we would try to I would try to make a point on? And in this PowerPoint, you have this slide. In the full report and in other PowerPoints we've done, you can see this slide broken out by school, so there'd be one slide for each elementary school. This is the change in full-time staff positions envisioned under meeting fiscal compliance. As we talk about combined solutions, what if there was state relief? What if there was more revenue here? A point that Ted and I discuss a lot, and by the way, Ted and Deb served on the fiscal compliance work group, and Roberta as well, and so they voluntarily invested a good bit of 6 or 7 months of their lives to this work too, and I hope that they would say in some way that was perhaps helpful in sharing a common understanding or developing one. One of those conversations that came out of that for me and Ted and Deb has been, We just have to be careful that we can't fix a school in the fiscal compliance area. You can save outdoor school because that sort of sits outside of the school-by-school, Commissioner Vigliotti, special population by special population funding amount, but at the school level, there can't be a scenario where you would say, or anyone would say, well, the, that projected class size at Eldersburg would be just too much and we could never have that one, so we'll give you X amount of dollars to make that one go away. It's a formula across 40 schools, so more money would help. We could apply a total amount of money to the school system, but we'd have to go back into that teacher staffing formula and kind of realign, readjust those ranges, those thresholds of the whole formula. We would not be able to work with you to sort of solve just a school at a time or something like that. It's got to be part of the tapestry of every school and every funding program, school by school.
So basically, if we were to give you $5, there's all Blueprint would commandeer where the $5 is going to go.
Blueprint mandates funds being spent at the school level in specific ways.
Right.
And to make those numbers end up in the right place across their system, that's why we're shifting from this school to that school and another school. So it would have to sort of be a distribution to the whole picture. It would improve things, but it would have to be a distribution to the
It
whole
wouldn't be a
picture.
tailored approach. A Blueprint would commandeer and say, here you go.
So I want to come back to that because that was my question I had for you, but I want to make a couple quick points before we get there. Can you go back to page 6 real quick with the per pupil funding? So just to sort of editorial comment, my understanding so far is that these are annual state Blueprint per pupil. My understanding right now is that the state can't even fund what you see here. Isn't that is a serious debate ongoing right now within the General Assembly that.
Yes. So it's always more complicated than the full picture can ever be on one slide. But where the state is on this issue is when you look at that FY26 base per pupil number of $9,226, we typically also call that the foundation, the base per pupils foundation. Part of the governor's proposal was to back some money out of that base per pupil amount, specifically $163, and that piece of money, that $163, is the state's, they have attached that amount of money to teacher collaborative time, the so-called 60-40 time split of teachers. And so he is proposing to push the implementation timeline of 60-40 out, but correspondingly backing out the money associated with it. And so the foundation would go down by $163, and then correspondingly, those other numbers would adjust because they're percentages of the foundation. So the House either has or is passing the Governor's Excellence in Maryland Schools Act out with the money restored to the foundation, and I suspect it will go to conference and have to sort of be settled in the conference process. But I think that's a recognition that they have a structural deficit.
So that's the larger picture, obviously, what's currently going on with the General Assembly. And I don't know if pushing that 60-40 back necessarily does us any good. I mean, I think it just delays the inevitable. But so that is obviously an issue at the state level. How is the state government going to pay for this? There was something mentioned earlier about some of the changes that were made to the Carroll County school system prior to 2020, perhaps, with the front office and things of that nature. And then I think one of my colleagues, I think Commissioner Kyler, alluded to the fact that that was fairly transparent to a lot of parents. I mean, parents still are concerned about class sizes. They're still the ones, the really good parents out there are paying attention. So I'm sure it's never going to be good enough. I'm one of those parents. But I think it is interesting to note that when all those things were taking place, that was out of the front office. And it was partly due to enrollment. And it was fairly transparent to people. And it occurred. This board wasn't sitting at the time, but it happened. I want to address really quickly, too, the issue of revenue. And there's been a lot of discussions about other counties, in Howard County, and Montgomery County, Frederick County. If you live in Carroll County, you do not want to pay taxes. Carroll County, you do not want to pay Montgomery, Howard taxes. You just don't want to do that. That's why you're living here. It's a bit of a catch-22 for a lot of residents. We want to see things funded, but we don't want to pay those type of taxes. There's a reason why Carroll County has the lowest unemployment rate in the state. One of the speakers alluded earlier, because it's a state where people don't mind driving to their jobs, and then they want to come home to good schools, safe neighborhoods, and what is one of the most affordable counties in the state. I happen to think there's no place really affordable to live anywhere in Maryland, but you get my picture. Carroll County does fairly well with that. But in terms of revenues, again, it's important to mention, the state has been raising assessments virtually every single year on every single Maryland taxpayer. Property tax revenues have gone up. They've gone up $42 million in the past 5 years, and that's not accounting what we expect for FY26. That's a 16% increase. Income tax has gone up $37 million. That's 18.5%. So revenues are increasing. I mean, I just want to make sure people understand that, because there's a lot of people watching. The fact remains, you know, if you don't mind your property tax bills going up about 25% perhaps, then that would have to happen to fund what we're taking a look at now. And again, that would be every single year on you. So you got a $4,000 property tax bill, expect to pay $1,000 more every single year. But that leads me to my next question, and I think you hit on this a little bit, Mr. O'Neill, but so the issue of being able to provide, we're talking just blueprint funding now, the $44 million, not the operating budget piece, the $44 million. Let's say, you know, you've got outdoor schools and you've got funding into the formula itself. If this board were able to give a portion of that money, maybe it's not $44 million, maybe it's $20 million. Can you explain to me, and I think a lot of people watching, what discretion do you really have with some of those funds? It's amazing to me to be told that we would not have a say where a lot of that money goes. And it goes right back into the funding formulas that are causing our heartache and pain right now. However, there does sound like there is other funding that would, you know, like the outdoor school is a completely separate, I don't know, silo or bucket. So can you just explain that a little bit, as much for me, but people watching, what we can really do? Because I think that is what we're trying to focus on.
Sure. We call the outdoor school. That's what we say. It's not identified as a school. From a state perspective, it would be a special program, but not a comprehensive school. And it is a special program. And so the blueprint, the things on your screen, the categories on your screen, the requirements of spending those funds based on populations of students don't apply to the outdoor school.
And sort of projects and programs of that nature. I mean, I don't want you to single out the outdoor school, but there's a lot of things being discussed right now that.
Career and tech would be another example.
Okay.
And when you think about it, all sixth graders go to outdoor school. But they don't. They go to outdoor school for a week for the experience. It's not a school in that sense, and so it sits outside of the buckets of money on the screen. And so with career and tech, and we are actually still trying to explore, are there ways that we can code the expenditures of students who attend special programs against these buckets of money back at their home schools? Because that can help mitigate. We didn't say it here, we say it every other time we do sort of the general public presentation. Another part of this is maximizing the amount of things that we can legitimately and legally and appropriately charge to these program areas, which historically we haven't had to do, and there's new guidelines for what that means. So we're trying to work through that. I will tell you, it's sort of a challenge to kind of pick through it. It's also a scenario where we have two budget folks in Carroll County Public Schools, so there's also a reasonableness about how much I could actually ask somebody to do, because it gets into something, and I don't know what I'm talking about right now, but it gets into something that they call journaling, where they would have to do a lot of hard hand work to make those expenditures matter. And right now, I don't see that that's work on our front burner, because it's not tens of millions of dollars that are going to help solve this. It'll be something we continue to work on. At the school level, there's not a slide in this PowerPoint for it, so this will be a little clumsy, but if you turn to page 14 in the plan in front of you, under the section called Addendum February 12, 2024.
Maybe you can go to it on the screen too.
I can't.
Commissioner Garrett, it's in the report.
It's in this
Well, I mean, I know,
report.
but I don't know if people can see it at home.
Yeah, people can't see it at home, but they can find it on our website.
It is online.
It is online. It's on our website under Board of Ed Blueprint Fiscal Compliance. To the question of if it couldn't be 44 million, but it could be something, X dollars. The thing that's driving the class size, so to speak, is the formula on page 14 of the addendum. And you see those tiers. And those those 4 tiers are established based on the percentage of compensatory ed students in every school. And so if that school's range of compensatory ed students is between 6 and 19%, that's a tier 1 school, and so forth as you follow that out. This formula is set up based on our FY25 funding. If you increased our FY26 funding with additional revenue that we could then apply across the schools, what we would have to do is we can't fix an Eldersburg, but we would apply the money broadly across the system, and we would be able to adjust those columns called ratios. Those are staff to student ratios more positively. And as a result of that, 44 would become a number less than 44, and 38 would become a number less than 38, and so forth and so on across the tier 1 and tier 2 schools. That's generally how that would work, if that made any sense at all.
And that's the point I was trying to get to, that I want people to understand, that the idea of quote unquote funding Blueprint, whatever money is going into this formula, it's distributed evenly still. And that's how we got here. Now, yeah, if it eases some of the ratios, that'd be a good thing. But I think it's important for people to realize those aren't quote unquote discretionary funds. We don't get to say, okay, all that money is going to go to offset or quote unquote blueprint proof certain schools. It doesn't work that way. No. And by bringing that up, I just want to highlight again the sort of the absolute difficulty that Blueprint poses for school systems, but particularly Carroll County. I mean, it is truly acute. And so I just want people to make sure they understand that when they're saying 44 million, hand it over. It still has to go into this formula. I mean, it may relieve some of the pain, but that is how stringent, I guess, or stringent, that's not the right word. Restrictive Blueprint is. And I hope those are some of the conversations, obviously that we're having at this moment down there, in Annapolis, in a very earnest way to sort of get that point across. And it sounds like that is happening.
Blueprint.
But I think that's an important point for people to understand.
And to that point, another conversation Ted and I have been having since his time on the work group is we don't always, I guess, do a great job, I suppose, since it wasn't clear even to Ted, of making it known that Blueprint is restricting state funding in these columns, but Blueprint is restricting local funding in these columns as well. There's what they call the shares. There's a state share for each of these columns, and then there's a requisite formula-driven local share. And the state funding, the state share, and the local share, the combined shares, if you will, are restricted by these programs. And when the population of students goes up in any of these programs, so too would the state aid go up, but so also would your local share requirement go up and be restricted school by school, program by program.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you.
Back when I was on your side of the street, the commissioners over here asked the question several times, and Carroll County was promised that their extra money would be zero, that we already funded over MOE, and we would not have to do any more funding to help Blueprint. And that went away, and that's just life.
I think it's a technicality, Commissioner. Legally, your number would be zero. And I think that's how they would answer that. As a local community, can the school system function at that level is a different conversation. But you are funding above maintenance of effort. You are funding above your required Blueprint shares. Therefore, there's a zero on that column. Can Carroll County Public Schools operate effectively or the same way at zero? No, we cannot. And I don't think anyone here disagrees with that. That's how they would explain that.
And I'm curious, and we probably have more questions. Commissioner Rothstein ambushed you and stopped your slideshow and presentation, and then we started asking questions. And I've got to ask, what do you want to tell us that we haven't covered?
I think we've covered it all. I don't think we need to go through any more of the presentation. I think we've discussed it more conversationally, which was probably better.
Well, thank you. You're very tactful.
The input from last night was very valuable.
Absolutely.
There was definitely common themes that, resonate, like, teacher-student ratios, the reading specialist, the media specialist, athletic directors. I mean, these are things, the big rocks that, you expected. I think there was some misunderstanding of where funding comes from, but we cleared a bit of that up this morning, so I appreciate that. Just like any other large problem, we recognize we can't tax our way out of a problem like this. There's just doesn't make sense. Possibly meeting in the middle somewhere may to give us something to moving forward, because there's got to be a compromise somewhere.
Well, we will keep you posted
Yeah.
as we hear from the state
Yep.
on where we are with them.
Well, thank you all for coming in to talk to us today, and thank you for your continued communication and cooperation with us. And this, and let me be clear about that part of it as well. This isn't just a Board of Ed or a school problem, where this is a county-wide issue that all of us are invested in trying to solve. I mentioned earlier, some counties have knocked down adversarial relationships with their schools and their boards of education. That is not the case here. This is not a question of who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who's a hero, who's a villain, nothing like that. It's what is the best possible way forward that we can pursue given the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do as well.
Thank you. And we did talk earlier, which you haven't done. In the old days, Superintendent Guthrie would run across the street to come in here and talk to us. I told him, John O'Neill has said he'll walk fast, but he ain't running.
This morning, Nick ran and I chased him. We compromised.
And I'm not sure if I can run.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is the town-county agreement for Mount Airy. And thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Hello, Ted.
Hi. Okay, we've got our last town-county agreement for this fiscal year from the town of Mount Airy. We've talked about this several times this year, but just for people out there who maybe weren't on, the county has a longstanding revenue-sharing relationship with the towns that recognizes we are both taxing the same citizens. Mount Airy's amount this year, the amount of the check is $193,994. And you remember the gross amount, the initial calculation is actually larger than that, but we have a collaborative arrangement with the towns on stormwater work, which they fund. So rather than us sending them one check and then sending us back another check, we just net this out and send them the remaining amount. So what I need today is just your approval for this agreement, and then we will send them the check.
Commissioner Garin, you want to take it? Because it's...
Sure, I move the Board of Carroll County Commissioners approve the FY25 town-county agreements with the town of Mount Airy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Medication assistant treatment, medical expenses for Carroll County Detention Center.
How are you both today?
Good morning.
Morning.
The Office of Procurement and Cooperation with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office requests your approval to spend up to but not to exceed $248,655.16 to Prime Care Medical, Inc. for medication-assisted treatment and related medical expenses for Carroll County Detention Center inmates for the remainder of FY25. Prime Care Medical, Inc. is an approved term contractor. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 25 budget. This purchase will be made with 100% covered by the opioid restitution settlement grant.
Good morning, Commissioners. So we're before you. It's a separate funding source and separate expenses from the other expenses we were here before for Prime Care. So if you have any other questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the spending authority to Prime Care Medical Incorporated for medication-assisted treatment and medical expenses for Carroll County Detention Center inmates in the amount of $248,655.16, which will be paid with the opioid restitution settlement grant.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now we'll talk about Genesis Treatment Services.
The Office of Procurement Cooperation with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office requests your approval to spend up to but not to exceed $90,000 to Genesis Treatment Services for medication-assisted treatment for Carroll County Detention Center inmates for the remainder of fiscal year 25. Genesis Treatment Centers is an approved term contractor. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 25 budget. This purchase will be made with 100% covered by the opioid restitution settlement grant.
So again, Commissioners, another expense that we have through the MAP program, funded through this funding source through the opioid restitution settlement grant. So,
Why are we splitting these in half a year?
well, this is what's left for the rest of the fiscal year.
So why don't we just, in the
So-
beginning of the fiscal year, say we're gonna use this amount of money?
So this is new for us to come over, so we've been able to estimate for the rest of the year. We haven't had to do this in the past.
We
So,
haven't?
No. And to actually come over and do this, because they're all on term contracts. So in this case, we have to come over to get the spending authority for the rest of the fiscal year now. So we've been able to estimate through what this particular vendor and what we think the costs will be for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Motion to approve the spending authority to Genesis Treatment Services for medication-assisted treatment for Carroll County Detention Center inmates in the amount of $90,000, which will be paid with the opioid restitution settlement grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, occupational physicals and drug testing for fire EMS. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Chief. How are you today?
Chief Robinson, how you doing?
And I did get reprimanded for not being at Manchester's breakfast because you guys make it, and I didn't.
I did go last week. Just
The Office of Procurement and Cooperation, the Department of Fire EMS requests your approval to spend up to but not to exceed $400,000 to Carroll Occupational Health for occupational physicals and drug testing for fire and EMS employees and volunteers for the remainder of FY25. Carroll Occupational Health is an approved term contractor with Carroll County. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 25 budget.
So this would continue the funding for pre-employment and the annual occupational physicals for both career and volunteer personnel. This ensures that all personnel, both career and volunteer, are physically capable to perform the job duties without undue risk to themselves or others, and it also meets the recommendation of the National Fire Protection Association, which has a standard for occupational physicals. In addition, these funds will also cover both random and reasonable suspicion drug testing, which we do on an ongoing basis.
Motion to approve the spending authority for occupational physicals and drug testing for fire and EMS employees and volunteers to Carroll Occupational Health in the amount of $400,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And also, I've sent you all a review of the Senate Bill 935 that was talked about earlier, so you should have
thanks.
that. in your
Thank you very much,
Appreciate
Chief.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Public Works, approval to purchase Design Engineering Bidding Services for Carroll County Regional Airport's Automated Weather Observation Station.
That's fancy.
AWAS.
That's going to be I'm going to be curious how you do that motion.
Oh, AWAS?
That's a long one.
Good morning.
Morning.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Public Works, requests your approval to award task order number 13 to provide the design, engineering, and bidding services for replacement and relocation of Carroll County Regional Airport's automated weather observation station to Delta Airport Consultants, Inc. in the amount of $95,000. Delta Airport Consultants, Inc. is a term contractor that assists with professional services at Carroll County Regional Airport. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 25 budget. This purchase will be made with 95% covered by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act grant through the FFA and 5% covered by the Airport Enterprise Fund.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, our AWAS is very, very old and in desperate need of replacement. We've been talking about replacing it pretty much since I became Deputy Director. We have trouble getting parts for it, and it is constantly not reporting out, so we're constantly restarting the system, which is, pilots rely on that reporting for weather. So yeah, as he indicated, 95% is going to be funded by the what was previously the BIL Act is now the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
And only 5% being paid by the county at a grand total of $4,750. That's phenomenal. I'll make a motion to approve the design, engineering, and bidding services for the replacement and relocation of the Carroll County Regional Airport's automated weather observation station to Delta Airport Consultants Incorporated in the amount of $95,000, which will be paid with an IIJA grant reimbursing 95% of the cost, or $90,250, and the county paying 5% of the cost, or $5,750, out of the Airport Enterprise Fund. I will not say that 10 times fast.
Thanks for doing that.
I have one question.
Did you say 5,000?
He said 5,000.
What, did I?
It's 4,750.
I'm doing it again. All right.
Just make the
I withdraw the motion. I will do it again. Do it again. Motion to approve. I can't stop laughing now. Motion to approve the design, engineering, and bidding services for the replacement and relocation of the Carroll County Regional Airport's automated weather observation station to Delta Airport Consultants Incorporated in the amount of $95,000, which will be paid with an IIJA grant reimbursing 95% of the cost, or $90,250, and the county paying 5% of the cost, or $4,750, out of the Airport Enterprise Fund.
Second.
So he did it okay this time.
That time he's
You
okay.
Seconded, okay. Any questions or discussion?
Well, the only I have is, this is not at risk with federal grants, federal funding at this point.
That is, to be determined, I guess. We're still waiting further
Right.
instruction, but as far as we've been told, and some of the industry associations, it doesn't appear that anything FAA will be affected by that.
Okay, obviously, if there are federal grants that are impacting these type of purchases, please let us be aware. So,
Absolutely.
because we're relying on them.
Good point.
And this is more that we're furnished the cash flow to make this happen and being reimbursed later?
That's correct.
Any other questions, discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, approval to purchase pool demo, infill and grading on parcel 5 at Carroll County Regional Airport.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Department of Public Works, requests your approval to award task order number 14 to provide pool demolition, infill, and grading on parcel 5 of the airport property map for the Carroll County Regional Airport's runway and taxiway relocation safety enhancements project to Delta Airport Consultants, Inc. in the amount of $99,800. Delta Airport Consultants, Inc. is a term contractor that assists with professional services at Carroll County Regional Airport. This amount is approved in the fiscal year 25 2025 budget. This purchase will be made with 95% covered by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act grant through the FFA and 5% covered by the Airport Enterprise Fund.
Yes, so this project is part of the larger runway and taxiway relocation and safety enhancements project. Parcel 5, which we recently purchased, has a pool on it, and it's partially inside the new runway protection zone. So the pool needs to be demolished, and the area surrounding the pool needs to be regraded. Also, as part of this task order, a couple new requirements from the FAA have come out. One of those is Title VI Airport Non-Discrimination Plan, and the other one is Community Participation Plan. So those two plans will be accomplished as part of this task order as well.
So Delta designs, puts it out for bid. This doesn't include the actual work?
That's correct.
Because, and they'll get that bid, and then we'll get to see that when it happens.
Yes, this task order, it's the design and then all the grading, like I said, around the pool, and it's all that engineering, as well as there's two plans that we have to address with the FAA, and it also has their construction administration.
Yes.
So it's absent any construction.
Yeah, they're managed the
They're going to put out
contractor.
a bid package, and then they'll manage the construction as it goes.
We just don't know who the contractor is yet, but they're managing.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
They'll manage, they'll help us manage the bid process as well.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the pool demolition, infill, and grading on Parcel 5 of the airport property map for the Carroll County Regional Airport's runway and taxiway relocation and safety enhancements project to Delta Airport Consultants Incorporated in the amount of $99,800, which will be paid with an IIJA grant reimbursing 95% of the cost, or $94,810, and the county paying 5% of the cost, or $4,990, out of the Airport Enterprise Fund.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, approval of use of a term contractor for traffic engineer. Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
You guys are going to get us out of here, so it's still morning, right?
That's my plan.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Bureau of Engineering, requests your approval to utilize the term contract with Wallace Montgomery for a contractual traffic engineer in the amount not to exceed $52,000. Wallace Montgomery was previously awarded a term contract that was competitively bid. This amount is within the FY25 adopted budget.
So we're here to seek your concurrence to provide an on-site traffic engineer for 2 days a week for maximum 6 months. Traffic engineering position became vacant in March of 2020. Since November of 21, we've had a consultant on site assisting us, and it's worked well. While it's not our preference, we have not been successful in hiring anyone to fill the position full-time.
Motion to authorize the Bureau of Engineering to use the term contract with Wallace Montgomery for a contractual traffic engineer in the amount not to exceed $52,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone on the line for public comment?
We do, sir. We have a general comment from a phone call. If the
Yes,
caller
we
could
do have one
use
on
star
for
6 to unmute.
Okay.
You'll have 3 minutes, and
So,
please identify.
can you go ahead?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, greetings, commissioners. Yes, good morning, and I will try to get you out definitely before noon because I was on my way to a lunch and pulled over on the side of the road just to speak to you guys this morning. Catherine Adelaide, a member of the Carroll County Republican Central Committee. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I'm going to always thank you guys for doing that, not take that for granted, and thank your staff, especially your tech staff. I have a lot of great news. We're just going to focus primarily on our legislative breakfast update. We had a legislative breakfast. That's really the highlight, I think, of the Central Committee all year long. It's a fundraiser, and we support our delegation. That was Saturday, March 1st at the Winfield Firehouse. And I want to start out by thanking my fellow members who did the really heavy lifting on this event for the breakfast. Chair Joe Lehman, who emceed the event. He always does a great job. Our event subcommittee, Karen Leatherwood, Krista Schultz, and Mercedes Mobus. Rich Collins sang the national anthem and did a lot of other things, I'm sure, but the boy can sing. Scott Hollenbeck coordinated a food bank drive for our local schools. Sam Jones was very, very busy with Senator Reedy doing legislation, but he showed up and pitched in at the last moment and probably before that. And I managed to pull together a pro-life table 24 hours before the event. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it because of my schedule. I want to thank Stephen Leon, the president of Carroll County Right to Life, who provided the banner. This banner was carried in the National March for Life. So Carroll County was represented at the National March for Life this year. I may have mentioned that before. And Sally Taylor provided our Carroll County Right to Life flyers. She showed up in the morning. We got them at every table. The table represented Defend Life, Students for Life. We had 14 new members sign up for Carroll County Right to Life, including 5 or 6 elected officials. Of note, too, I put a little dress, a frame, or sometimes it's a little onesie, and that got a lot of attention because it showed the actual size of a full-term preborn baby in a non-graphic way, and people noticed it. And, you know, this is what's happening in Maryland. And even though question 1 went through, we are not giving up on ending abortion in Maryland. So we are staying focused on that, and I hope you will join us. I did also want to thank the wonderful breakfast we had. The legislative updates were given by our Carroll County delegation. It appears that fentanyl bill has been approved this year. They were working on it last year. I don't know if you all heard about the kitty condoms bill. That was defeated. And a lot of testimony going on against assisted suicide. The word is we hope that will fail in the Senate subcommittee this year. I did want to thank the commissioners who attended. We appreciate your support. And finally, Karen Donaldson from the Board of Elections donated a silent auction basket. But really, it's just a wonderful, wonderful event, a real ray of sunshine with everything else going on. And that's my report. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Do we have some here?
Yes, Andrew Manning.
Good morning, Commissioners. To begin, I would like to say, you don't have to participate, but please don't play or hate. If you missed it last week, Optimus Prime, Governor Wes Moore asked all the members of Maryland to turn themselves into Transformers about 10 times. To get the formalities out of the way, as a civilian, I sincerely salute you and your service, sir. Please allow me to share some of my accolades. I'm a proud alum of the Charles H. Hickey School and Cheltenham Youth Facility. I've dedicated some time in the mountains of Cumberland at a mental hospital. I have completed the program at Woodburn Residential Treatment Center off of Loch Reagan Boulevard. While I graduated from Westminster High, I spent equal time at Carroll County's alternative school, Gateway. My point is, I question the sincerity of someone who chooses to boast about himself twice in 20 minutes while specifically addressing concerns of public importance, of pertinent public importance. I would like to offer 2 critiques. Number 1, as a governor of Maryland, I would say you should definitely have some sway with the local news stations. If I were you, and I'm just saying, I would hit up WBAL, I'm sorry, wrong one. I would hit up Fox 45, get on the phone, hey, yo, let me holler at Brandy Proctor. Sorry, that's just me. Let me speak to Kai Jackson. I want to do a segment at 6 o'clock. The 4 and 5 o'clock segments are exactly the same stuff you just spouted at 6 o'clock. So get me on there. I don't want to make it all about me. I want to talk about the residents that are really losing their jobs. Get them on there, have a live broadcast, talk to them face to face, see what they're saying, see why they're really losing their jobs, see if the big bad monster at the White House is really the cause for it, or if there are underlying circumstances that have led up to it. Second, I heard your concerns about a lack of teachers. Well, I have some good news. I'm going to solve that issue right now, here and now. Today, I will be doing a visual representation of how the internet was invented. And I didn't practice this beforehand, so. With this intrinsic knowledge I have gifted upon the residents of Carroll County and Maryland as a whole, regions of the brain we have never even knew existed will be activated in the youth, and the possibilities are endless. In conclusion, in the words of Freak Nasty, when I dip, you dip, we all dip. I've been Don Quiones. Allow me to bow, please. Please don't confuse me with Don Quixote or Don Quinones. And yes, I am related to Richard N. Cajones, second cousins on my father's side. My pronouns are Jack and Az, 1S, and March of the Penguin, 20. Oop, my time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Admin session open. Does anybody have any business to bring up in admin open?
No, sir.
Nope.
Okay. Agenda review.
Hello, Wanda. How are you?
Thank you. Okay. Monday, March 10th, 3 p.m., Transit Advisory Council, Commissioner Kyler. Tuesday, March 11th, Chesapeake Connect reception at the National Aquarium, Commissioner Rothstein. And at 5:30, Ag Center Annual Dinner Meeting, Commissioners Gordon, Kyler, and Vigliotti. And Commissioner Rothstein, they seem to like you better. Do you need to do like an apology to them or something, or, we'll be okay? We'll be okay. Wednesday, March 12th, Farm Museum, Commissioner Vigliotti, and he is their favorite. 4 p.m., Board of Education meeting right now, no one there. On Thursday, March 13th, 8 a.m., closed admin, 9 a.m., open session, Priority Carol, National Ag Day Proclamation, legislative update, proposed text amendments, Chapter 155 and 156, 5-year annual plan, Bureau of Housing, public hearing for Community Development Block Grant, public hearing on Chapter 90, the permission to do the public hearing, the approval. Contract renewal mowing for county parks, annual transportation plan, recommended water and sewer rates, solid waste enterprise fund rates, Acela civic platform, and the second item is the Tyler Cashering whatever connector department.
Right, so it was like the first, item 11 is a fund transfer, and then I guess item 12 is specifically about the.
Yes.
Okay.
The specific item.
Gotcha,
Yep,
okay.
Yep. Public comment, admin open, agenda review, 1 p.m., Board of County Commissioners open session, human resources update, and position committee recommendation agency hearing, and both of those do have public comment. Friday, March 14th, vacant. Saturday, March 15th, Pleasant Valley Volunteer Fire Company 94th Anniversary Banquet. Commissioner Vigliotti and Commissioner Guerin has the podcast. The following week. Monday, March 17th shows nothing. March 18th, Planning and Zoning Commission, Commissioner Gordon. 9 a.m., Board of County Commissioners open session, recommended budget presentation, and that one does not have public comment. Can we note right next to item 1, like no public comment or something, so people see that there's, so they're not confused. I hate it when people get confused. 2 p.m., Veterans Advisory Meeting, Commissioners Gordon and Kyler. Wednesday, the Mako Luncheon, and add me to that. I'm I'm going to go to Annapolis also. Carroll Community College, 5 PM Board of Trustees. I am not going to that because I am going to Philadelphia. Carroll County Chapter MML Quarterly Meeting, Gordon Rothstein and Vigliotti, 7 PM Community Solar Hearing. That one is virtual, and I'm going to do that as I'm riding. 7 PM Emergency Services Advisory Council, Commissioner Garin. On Thursday, I will be virtual at 8 AM for closed admin and 9 AM for open session. Priority Carroll, Mr. Rick Barber, retirement, and American Red Cross Month. Legislative update, agency budget hearings, and public comment, open session, admin, agenda review. Friday shows nothing. On Saturday, March 22nd, Commissioner Rothstein's at Sykesville Freedom Fire Company 91st Anniversary Banquet, and Commissioner Rothstein also has the podcast. Yes, and we have a pretty light agenda. I'll be virtual as long as I can be from Philly. Any additions, questions? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.